Trevor Lawrence, Matthew Stafford, they're all in the $55 million a year range. If they're going to give him a contract this offseason or by the start of the regular season for $55 million, I actually think that would be a great mistake by Nick Caserio and company. It's not that C.J. Stroud can't be this franchise quarterback. It's not that they can't have success with C.J. Stroud, B. Scott. We've seen him the last 3 years go to the postseason, win a postseason game, and then tap out and reach their apex in the second round. But the need and the rush to give him that money and make that decision right now wouldn't make any sense to me. And I'm someone that this is not revisionist history. These are things that I've said in the past, and I've stayed by them. When the Dolphins rushed to give that contract to Tua Tagovailoa, thought it was a mistake. When the Jaguars rushed to give that contract extension to Trevor Lawrence, I know he bounced back last season, but let's see some consistency from him. I thought it was a mistake. And right now, rushing to get a deal done with C.J. Stroud to give him $55, $56, $57 million a year, I just think the timing of it doesn't make sense for me. And I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to test C.J. Stroud this year. Hey, a lot of people are against you. A lot of people are out on you. We want to give you a lucrative contract, but we got to see you take that next step. I don't think it's a bad challenge for the Texans to issue to him this year.
What if the deal was somewhere between $45 to $50 million and it was a short-term deal with a lot of guarantees or mostly guaranteed? That to me is the compromise, because I agree with you. Like, I'm not about to push back on anything you just said. The idea of paying C.J. Stroud $55 to $60 million a year right now, I think at best is risky, and at worst is what you just said, a complete and outright mistake. But either way, I think he would have a tough time justifying that figure right now. Now, could he play himself into that figure after this year? Absolutely. I think that's what this year is supposed to be about, or should at least be about, the sort of game within the game when we talk specifically about C.J. Stroud. How much, again, if and how much once you get there. But to do it right now at that figure, I think would be presumptuous. This is the tough part, and I've said this. They've got two questions to answer, I think, specifically with the Texans. Not just any old team, but the Texans specifically, with how they're building their team and how their quarterback has played. Do they have a $55 to $60 million plus quarterback, $60 million plus quarterback in C.J. Stroud? And do they even need a $60 million plus quarterback with the type of team that they're clearly trying to build, which is something we're going to talk about throughout the show, and something we also talked about last week, their young nucleus of talent on the defensive side of the ball, all of the guys that they're already either paying or about to pay, like they're building this team defensive first, and you can see why, because they have so much talent on that side of the ball. And then you look at the quarterback position, how much do you really need from it? Could you get by with a rookie quarterback who's really good, or a quarterback on a rookie contract, someone who's making anywhere from $25 to $30 or $35, $40 million a year, as opposed to the Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen figure? So that's what I think this season is about. This is the season for them to decide, do we have a $60 million quarterback, and do we even need or want a $60 million quarterback?
There's a lot to unpack here. Need and wants are different. So, do they need a $55, $60 million quarterback with this core for the next 2 to 3 years to go win a Super Bowl? No, they do not. If they get a Sam Darnold type of production, if you look at Seattle, where Sam Darnold didn't even play that well in that Super Bowl, where the defense is lights out and the quarterback just doesn't mess it up, this group is more than capable of playing on Super Bowl Sunday. But for the next 10 years of this franchise, yeah, they do need a $55 million plus quarterback, because history has shown us, even though we've seen some examples where not the greatest quarterbacks in the world have won Super Bowls, like a Brad Johnson, like a Nick Foles, like a Sam Darnold from a year ago. In the last 20, 25 years, there's a lot more Hall of Fame quarterbacks that win Super Bowls than do not. From Tom Brady to Peyton Manning to Patrick Mahomes to Ben Roethlisberger to Aaron Rodgers to Drew Brees. The list goes on and on and on. And to get back to what you were saying about the money on the contract, the range, if he's going to give him a discount, where Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield were at when they got their $33 million a year contract, basically $100 million over 3 years, C.J. Stroud is more advanced than both of them. Now, I would still rather have Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield here in Houston right now than C.J. Stroud, but where CJ is at in terms of getting his contract extension potentially this offseason, when Sam and Baker got those deals, CJ was more further along in his career in terms of production in this league, where Sam, it was, all right, you had one nice year in Minnesota, but how much was it just the product of the system? For Baker, it was his last resort in Tampa Bay, did a nice job, got a contract there. So, like, I understand where that's like, you're not getting C.J. Stroud on a 3-year extension for $100 million. But the tipping point, if I was Stroud's camp, if you're telling me I can't get $50 million a year right now from the Texans, and I know that this deal was fully guaranteed, but Deshaun Watson makes $46 million a year. So, like, for the C.J. Stroud discount, I think it needs to be like $47, $48 million a year. So if I just play the role of agent right now, and I tell you, B. Scott, this, I'm going to give you $48 million a year, CJ, for 4 years. That's $192 million. I'll guarantee you, let me give you a respectable guarantee offer. I'll guarantee $115 million. $115 million out of $192. I'm giving you $48 a year for 4 years. Would you take that deal if you were CJ Stroud right now?
I would absolutely take that deal. And here's why. Because, and as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking about it. The timeline, Zach, the timeline is in the Texans' favor. When you talk about should they do this, well, they get to decide, really. They've got the timeline in their favor from this standpoint. They've got him under contract next year. They decided to pick up his 5th-year option they got him under contract for 2026, decided to pick up his 5th-year option for 2027. When we talk about this whole team-building process and these questions that we're asking about, do you really need a $50, $60 million quarterback? Well, they've got the defensive players for the next at least 2 years while they have C.J. Stroud under contract to operate with C.J. Stroud under the controlled figures that they have him under contract. And then past that, what's the team going to look like? We understand that everybody's operating under 2 to 3 year windows anyway. And so the timeline is in their favor. If you tell C.J. Stroud, hey, I'm just going to give you this money now on the front end for as young as you are, if you're C.J. Stroud, you take that bite at the apple right now, knowing that the timeline is not in your advantage, it's at the Texans' advantage. So I'd absolutely take that number if I was C.J. Stroud, but you could also understand why he would look at it to the point that you were just making and figure, hey, why don't I bet on myself? I deserve more than that based off of the production that we've had, not just me individually, but us as a team collectively over my first 3 seasons. So I get kind of recoiling at it, but you got to look at the reality and say, hey, this is all in the Texans' favor in terms of the negotiating power and the timeline.
And also, let's remember, you had the Dallas Cowboys a few years back play hardball with Dak Prescott, who they knew they were eventually going to give a contract extension to. So it's more than just this year and the 5th-year option. If the McNairs really wanted to get down and dirty, they could utilize the franchise tag route and elongate this even further. Now, it's not the greatest thing for the player. It's not the greatest thing for the relationship between the front office and the ownership along with the quarterback. Like, things could get hairy, things could get dicey. He could eventually request a trade. But if I'm the Texans, I go to him and I say, we'll give you 45. We'll give you $47 million a year. That's what we're willing to give you right now. Or we could table these conversations after this season. We think the world of you, but this is a lot of money. We're not ready to commit $55, $60 million a year. We think one day you can be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in football, but we've kind of seen you get onto the scene, and these are where the honest conversations happen in contract negotiations, where everyone's got to have thick skin. We've seen you got onto the scene here in H-Town, and you were dominant, right? You had one of the great rookie seasons of all time. You took us from the second pick of the draft into the second round of the playoffs, and from there, that right now was the ceiling. The last 2 years, you haven't been horrible, but we haven't seen you advance this thing forward. And if you're going to be a quarterback that's $55, $60 million a year, you got to advance this forward, specifically when we just had a year where Sam Darnold wasn't this creme de la creme quarterback. And why can't we in the Houston Texans be the Seattle Seahawks? Our defense is just as good, if not better. Nico Collins, he's not as great as Jackson Smith and Jigba, but he's a top 10 bona fide number one wide receiver in this league. Sure, the offensive line, it's a question mark going into this year. You got to see a second offensive weapon develop. Maybe it's Woody Marks. Maybe it's not the traditional way that we now look at it, just receiver, receiver, receiver. But this is a group where without exceptional quarterback play, they've been a habitual second-round team. So, CJ, you could either take the discount now or you bet on yourself, and we would be happy to write you a check next year and play on your terms if we see a team that takes that next step, this upcoming season, which would be in the AFC Championship game or, dare I say it, the Super Bowl.
And see, I imagine that is much more of a realistic conversation or a much more realistic version of how the conversations are going than, let's say, what we played earlier with Adam Schefter on the if and when. Like, we already know it's the if and when. But I think it's exactly the way you just laid it out. It's, hey, you know what? We're not quite ready to commit this figure for this amount of time.
You know what it's
yet.
like, B. Scott? You're with someone for like 8 months.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, I could see myself marrying this person. But you want to just know a little bit more about them. It's like second and goal. The ball is at the 8. You just had an incomplete pass, but you're still confident you could score a touchdown. But you want to see the touchdown actually been thrown, the touchdown actually be delivered before you get down on one knee and go, C.J. Stroud, will you marry me, please?
Yeah, I think the Texans are perfectly fine with dating him right now, to go with the analogy. Like
Keeping it slow.
I don't think that they're ready to marry him or get engaged or anything. I think they're just kind of cool with how it is. And honestly, again, going back to the timeline benefiting them, you can't ignore that part. Like, they have the benefit of the next 2 years, and it's not just 2 years with him under contract, but to your point, Zach, it's also like a 2-year audition, really a 1-year audition, if we're being honest. We're talking about this season upcoming, which is what makes it so exciting. But that's where it benefits them. They got him under a team-friendly contract, and they get to take advantage of that and not just paying a little bit less, but also using it as time to get more information to decide if they want to continue dating, get engaged, flat out get married. Like, how do they want to play this thing? Well, they're just going to see how 2026 goes. Does it look like, how much does it look like 2023 versus how it looked like 2025, right? I think that's going to be what ultimately it comes down to, getting to that next step, showing that, I think more than anything, when we talk about how last year ended, can you not only be the reason that we win, but more specifically not be the reason why we lost? We can't pay $55 million, $60 million a year for that, right? So, like, you can respect what C.J. Stroud has done over the first 3 seasons of his career and also understand the trepidation that the last 2 playoff games would absolutely give you in terms of, hey, can we go from here to there? Can we actually take that next step with this guy, especially at that figure?
P. Scott, I want you to flush everything we just said in the last 18 minutes. And here's why. If C.J. Stroud is an alpha, if C.J. Stroud is a dude, if C.J. Stroud is a dog, I'm telling the Texans, I don't want you $45 million a year. I don't want you $46 million a year. I know what I'm capable of. I'm going to go play your game this year. I'm going to take this as an insulting offer, and I'm going to go shut everybody up. That's what I would want to hear from C.J. Stroud. And then next year, you're going to be getting down on one knee and you're going to be imploring me to go sign a contract of $55, $60 million. I would love to hear C.J. Stroud say, I'm going to bet on myself this year. But with that being said, that's like what I would want if I'm a Texans fan. If I am C.J. Stroud, though, it is tough to pass up on that $44, $45 million a year right now.
Yeah, and C.J. Stroud and David Mulugeta, those guys have to decide, or they have to at least find the information. Does the league, do the Texans and the league sort of believe in him or think of him in the way that we first described him in the beginning of, hey, I'm not giving this guy that much? Like, is that the consensus feeling? Or is it more so, hey, we respect that he wants to bet on himself and we really believe in C.J. Stroud? Like, I think we've talked enough about how the league and how his peers, coaches, executives view C.J. Stroud as sort of a middling quarterback, so it shouldn't be a surprise if he gets a middling quarterback sort of contract offer.
And here's the thing, that contract offer of like a middling offer, a $40 million a year, a $35 million a year, will still be there if he face plants this year. Because there will be someone elsewhere that will say, hey, I could get C.J. Stroud back to his rookie year because we've seen arrogance through the years with many offensive coordinators around the league that somebody else is garbage. I'm not saying C.J. Stroud is garbage, but you get the point here.
Oh, yeah, it's bad dating habits.
Yes.
It's the I can
Could
fix
be somebody
them.
else's gold.
The league is full of I can fix them, right? We know people that are like that. Oh, this person is all sorts of problematic, but I can fix him once he gets with me. The league is full of those.
All righty, we'll take a break here on Sports Radio 610 Weekend. Zach Gelb, B. Scott here with you. B. Scott is one of the best voices in this city talking about the Houston Texans. So late last night, I sent them a text, and I said, I need your power rankings on this roster on how you rank each and every player. We're not going to give you all players right now, but I want to see how many players you have on this roster that are in front of C.J. Stroud. We will get B. Scott's rankings when we come on back. Zach Gelb, B. Scott here with you up until 3 on Sports Radio 610 Weekends right here in Houston.
Houston, starting Thursday, August 13th, Sports Radio 610 is moving to the FM dial.
Todd Haley's going to join us coming up at the top of the hour. We'll take you all the way up until 3 today. Let me get some reaction here on the first conversation that we had from our YouTube chat. You could always stream us live on YouTube for Sports Radio 610. And B. Scott, Sage Dragon, said it's definitely a prove-it year for CJ as well as Nick Caley, too. No doubt about it. That's the other part of the conversation that I think it's more locally and not nationally. Everyone nationally is like CJ Stroud, CJ Stroud, CJ Stroud. I would say locally it's CJ Stroud and Caley, both of them. It feels like it's make-or-break years for them.
Yeah, no, 100%, because, and I don't think this is the part that people really fixate on, because both the coordinators that C.J. Stroud has had have been, first-year coordinators when they started with him, right? So he's had young offensive coordinators. It's not like, name brands or guys that you really think about. So you just kind of look at the quarterback and you look at the head coach. But that's absolutely a question mark and a piece of this, right? Having to sort of switch up midstream, going into your third year with a new offensive coordinator. What does that look like? What does that adjustment look like? And maybe it's even something that we can talk to Ty Haley about in the next hour. But that is a piece of this. Might CJ Stroud look a lot better with more comfort within the offense that he's operating?
Steven_James 1965 says, I don't think you two guys have thought this through very well. Well, that's just wrong. There is zero incentive for CJ to do that. If he gives them the same QB play as he's been given, he'll get the same contract. You know what, Steven? I'm actually going to say one thing back to you, and it's simply this. I was in the same boat as you about 3 weeks ago because I thought to myself, why would you take the deal? But I think people, B. Scott, failed to realize the actual term of make or break. If he plays well this year and they get to an AFC championship game, if they get to a Super Bowl, or he's not the reason why they lose in the postseason, like let's say he throws for 4 touchdowns in the playoffs, no interceptions, and the defense, shockingly and surprisingly, is the reason why they end up losing, all right, that's a make year. But if he goes into the postseason in the second round next year and has 3 interceptions, that's a break. And if it's a break, he shouldn't be on the roster next year. And that means then you're going to dangle him out in trade conversation. Someone will trade a draft pick for him. And then C.J. Stroud will be sitting on a new team, like let's just say in Tampa Bay next year. I'm just going to throw a random team out there. And that's the 5th year of that contract where he's going to be playing it out and having to prove himself once again and not getting a cheaper contract that he would have been offered, right now. I don't think he'd be getting offered that this time next year.
The big part for me, and you asked this in the previous segment, would you take the deal if it's, around the $48 to $50 million or something like that if you're C.J. Stroud? And the reason why I would take it, look, the thing that it comes down to for me is the guaranteed money. If you can get most of it, if not all of it guaranteed, and this is an MO of David Mulugheta and David Mulugheta clients. Think about the Deshaun Watson trade and him getting a fully guaranteed contract, and albeit he had been playing well up to that point.
And the Browns are just stupid.
The Browns are stupid, and I think the league, that was an outlier, and I think the league has also learned something from that contract, obviously.
The league almost kicked the Browns out of the league for giving him a fully guaranteed contract.
100%. But you could see, and the Texans have been known to do this. They've done it with Danielle Hunter. They did it with Derek Stingley Jr., where they give you pretty much all but the final $1 million or $2 million of the contract guaranteed. So if you can get that, considering what the conversation is around C.J. Stroud right now, and this is why I feel like the top 100, it's not just content. The NFL top 100 and that executives ranking that ESPN had a couple of weeks ago, this to me I feel like is instructive, and the way that we're talking about him, to me instructive on how C.J. Stroud is viewed, not just in media, but across the league and by his peers. If you can you should get as much guaranteed money as you possibly can. Take that early bite at the apple, and if you play well enough, you'll get another chance at a contract. C.J. Stroud comes into the league as a very young player. You get that $100 million guaranteed now, and then maybe it's a short-term deal, and then you take another crack at it on the back end.
I was listening to Sean Pendergast and Seth Payne earlier this week on our morning show right here on Sports Radio 610. Cole Thompson did a nice job as the third mic in at times this past week. And I thought something was very intriguing to me in what Seth said as a player, because I've always taken these top 100 lists with a grain of salt because you don't really know how the voting process works. And Seth revealed that those votes are done before the postseason. That's the alarming part to me about the peers of C.J. Stroud, is like C.J. Stroud, if you would have asked me in December 1st, how do you view C.J. Stroud? I go, he's good. You know, he's better than average. He's good. He's had a nice start to his career. But I'm wondering if there's a different gear. But for the players to not even vote him a top 100 player this year, or it's looking like it's not going to be that way, before the postseason, that's the alarming part to me, because not that all those votes are like calculated the right way and you don't know the intent behind all those votes, but the fact that he wasn't on enough ballots to be in the top 100 before the postseason, before the disaster up against New England, that's the part where I go, the league doesn't really have a high opinion of C.J. Stroud, and they just think he's another dude.
Well, and this is the reason why I think the Nick Caley offensive coordinator, offensive system point is really important. Things that we talk about. What is Nick Caley in year 2? What kind of weapons does C.J. Stroud truly have? And does this offensive line makeover actually work? Does it actually? And I think that's one of the bigger questions going into training camp. I know ESPN, in a piece that Ben Solak did last week, identified the Texans' offensive line as one of the top questions going into training camp across the league, not just for the Texans, but across the entire NFL. And so all of these pieces actually matter in terms of what kind of season is C.J. Stroud going to have, but to the point that you're making, how C.J. Stroud was viewed even going into that playoff game. This is an important piece of it because they were playing the kind of offense that was really safe, really risk-averse, which is another reason why Texans fans were so offended by the turnovers in the playoffs, because they seemed so risk-averse, and the one thing that they did well offensively was take care of and possess the football. And so they had trouble with that in the playoffs. It was kind of an odd thing. But going forward, what does that do for C.J. Stroud? Are they going to have like a conservative sort of ho-hum, less than like sort of underwhelming offense going into 2026 or throughout 2026? What does that do for C.J. Stroud? What does that do for you as a team in trying to evaluate exactly what you have in C.J. Stroud? Going back to my earlier question of, do they even want a $55, $60 million quarterback? That's not just a question in terms of them building the team through the defense, as I pointed out before, but also what the offense looks like and what their offensive coordinator is actually out there running and what these weapons look like that they've surrounded C.J. Stroud with. And then, of course, that question about the offensive line. Like, there's more to this story than just C.J. Stroud, even though he's the one that ultimately is going to have to answer for all of it.
And here's the fascinating part to me. They can't let the outside opinions infiltrate their locker room and their approach on offense. Because what do you say and what do I say? Just don't mess it up, C.J. Stroud. Just be Sam Darnold. And if you're Sam Darnold last year, I know Sam Darnold had a great statistical season, but we're talking about what he did in the Super Bowl. Just protect the football. They can't have that be the approach, though, in the regular season. They still got to be aggressive, because I get it. This defense is great. It's phenomenal with Stingley and with Will Anderson. And you go across the board, Danielle Hunter, Petrie. Like, it is a great defense. But the quarterback's got to have confidence. The offense has got to have confidence, and they can't play afraid. They can't be in bubble wrap this year and go, oh, we just got to score like 17 points. We just can't turn over the football. We just got to rest on our defense. Like, there's game situations that may present it that way, but I got to see C.J. Stroud and Nick Caley take it to that next level and not be afraid and not just listen to what we're saying and what the rest of the media is saying, like, oh, just play it safe, play it safe, play it safe. They still got to show that their offense can drag their worth and could drag their weight.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, with C.J. Stroud is that, like, just imagine, I could not, I'll say this, I could not have imagined after his rookie year being in a place where we're begging C.J. Stroud, where we're begging the Texans offense to show us more, to be more aggressive, to take more risk. Like, they did such a great job at having explosive plays. You remember how they burst on the scene in 2023.
It was phenomenal. With
Nico Collins and Tank Dell, who was also a rookie at the time. And they just did really special things offensively that they have just not been able to recapture since. It's a weird place to be in. But it's like, yeah, and I loved how C.J. Stroud, whenever he did talk to the media during either OTAs or minicamp or whenever exactly it was, he says, yeah, we're going to try to implement some of the things that we have done in the past that were successful, that I like, that I'm comfortable with. I was kind of taken aback that they weren't already doing enough of that, apparently. But again, better late than never in this case as well. So, like, I want to see what does collaboration truly look like between the two, and does it ultimately get you like a more high-powered, electric, like explosive offense, which they just plainly were not last year.
I think this is a really good comment, but let's be real. We also know how these situations are talked about in the broad way that we do talk about them. Mark Carter, 1957, says in the YouTube chat, CJ still does not have a stable offensive line. This situation is not fair, and that is in all caps. All I will say is this. Drake May didn't have a stable offensive line. And don't get me wrong, Drake May was not good in the playoffs. Drake May was not good in the Super Bowl. But in the regular season, Drake May showed you that he was an MVP candidate. We've never seen C.J. Stroud play at an MVP candidate level. And yes, obviously, you need a good offensive line in this league. Everyone knows that. But there are still ways to show your worth. And sure, C.J.'s been to the postseason 3 times. He's won a playoff game all 3 times. But the way just after, 1.5 seasons of Drake May that we've been talking about him compared to 3 seasons of C.J. Stroud, it's different. And those situations are very similar. Sure, Drake May has a more proven offensive coordinator in Josh McDaniels, a disgraceful head coach, but a phenomenal offensive coordinator. Both defenses are lights out. But last year, and I know that the Pats had Stephon Diggs, but Stephon Diggs was coming off an ACL. There was no Nico Collins type of player in New England until now when they bring in A.J. Brown. So, yes, the offensive line has been abysmal. The offensive line has not been up to par. But C.J. still got to find a way to navigate through that because we've seen other teams have bad offensive lines, and those quarterbacks have been solidified as elite or great quarterbacks in this league.
I would look at it a little bit differently and bring it even closer to home. How about C.J. Stroud his rookie year? Let's just be real about it. Like, I agree with this overall comment that, like, the offensive line, it has a lot to prove this year. Obviously, they tried to remake it. We'll see what it looks like. But C.J. Stroud has never ever had a stable offensive line, including his rookie year, where I push back on your comments just a little bit. He was the offensive rookie of the year and finished top 8 in voting. That's not as good as what Drake May did last year. Not necessarily a legitimate MVP candidate, but he was damn good his rookie year, and he did so without a stable offensive line. And so you can only use that as an excuse up to a point, right? But so much until you have to hold the player accountable and want the player, especially if you're talking about $55, $60 million a year. Well, you've got to be the reason why we overcome. That's what you're paying that money for. That is what says you're that caliber of quarterback, that even when things are not ideal or less than perfect, we can still count on you to be something that is like an advantage or the reason why we win, right? Not this conservative, hey, we're not going to take a lot of shots. We're just going to try to possess the ball, ask you not to turn the ball over. Oh, and then, by the way, you're going to do that anyway in the playoff game. Like, we've got to hold the player accountable, even if we're taking it all into consideration of what the situation was. But I will point to his own rookie year when the offensive line was still in shambles, not ideal, never has been ideal since he got here, and we've seen him perform under those conditions. We're just asking him to continue to do it.
Yeah, I know all situations aren't created equal, but I'll just throw these 3 quarterbacks out there. We've seen Mahomes and that offensive line fail him before. He still had it fail him in the Super Bowl. We've seen Joe Burrow, his offensive line, fail him before. We've still seen Joe Burrow get to a Super Bowl. Drake May, his offensive line has failed him before. We've still seen him get to a Super Bowl. And, like, those 3 quarterbacks, I think, are talked about a whole lot differently than C.J. Stroud. I know Stroud was phenomenal the first year, but in years 2 or 3, we haven't seen him get to that next gear, and it's been a regression. All righty, Zach Gelb and B. Scott here with you. We'll continue to hammer the YouTube chat if you want to jump in on that conversation. Some more good comments to get to. But on the other side, B. Scott, I gave you a task, and I understand that you're one of the preeminent voices covering this team in this city. When we take a look at the Houston Texans, I want to know how many Texans you have ranked just as players this year on the team that you view better than C.J. Stroud. We'll get to that on the other side. Todd Haley going to join us in 20 minutes from now. It's Sports Radio 610 Weekends. He's B. Scott. I'm Zach Gelb. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
Houston, starting Thursday, August 13th, Sports Radio 610 is moving to the FM dial. Introducing 95.
358-6868.
Live from the West Point Lincoln and West Point Lincoln of Sugar Land Studios, it's Sports Radio 610 Weekends.
That's what I'm talking about. It's Sports Radio 610 Weekends. Todd Haley going to join us at the top of the hour. B. Scott, Zach Gelb here with you on a Sunday. We'll take you all the way up until 3. And B. Scott, now without further ado, we're going to see how well you pass this test, and we're going to see what kind of rankings you do have on where C.J. Stroud does rank on this roster and where all the outrage and all the positive thoughts are going to be directed your way. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's go, man. And I want to say this before we go through the rankings. I think that there's a part of this that is already an indictment on C.J. Stroud. I want to tell you this in the audience up front, that I decided to leave out the kicker because I didn't want to get cute. Right?
Ooh.
Like, I just decided, I was like, okay, how cute do I really want to get with this? Not trying to be that cute. Let's leave out the kicker. Let's go with players that actually play full series, didn't go with special teams guys. But the indictment part of it is, had I decided to get cute and leave the kicker in, he would have made this list before C.J. Stroud. And I don't know about you guys, but for me as a football fan, I want to trust my quarterback more than my kicker. I absolutely think that you want to trust your kicker, right? You want to trust your kicker, but you want to trust your quarterback more. And to me, it's an indictment that had I left the kicker, Kaimi Fairbairn, on this list, he would have come ahead of C.J. Stroud.
Oh,
yeah.
Feel like Lamar Jackson looking at his kicker last year, Tyler Lupin, saying Tyler looked like poop when he was going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, we're a low-budget operation here on the weekends.
Yeah.
So I will give you my custom sound effects. You give the player. We'll discuss that player. All righty. 3, 2, 1. Number one.
Number one has to be Will Anderson Jr. I don't know if there's an argument for anybody else. Maybe a couple of guys, but Will Anderson Jr. to me is the face of the franchise, the second best player, second best defensive player in the league, you could argue. So Will Anderson Jr. is number one for me.
And him and CJ came in same year, 2 and 3 in the draft. We saw both of them turn this organization around. But Will Anderson, there's no question about him being an elite football player. Clearly, many questions around CJ Stroud in that department. Number 2.
Danielle Hunter. I think that he's going to go down as one of the quietest superstars. I wouldn't even say borderline Hall of Famer. I think once you look at his resume, all the All-Pros, the consistency, the double-digit sack seasons.
No-brainer. If you pay attention, it's a no-brainer that he's a Hall of Famer.
Yes, Danielle Hunter. He is number 2 for me, second best player on this team.
All righty. Number 3.
I'm going to go Nico Collins. Had a little struggle here with him and one of the cornerbacks, but I'm going to go ahead and go Nico Collins. To me, at least a top 7 or 8 receiver in the game, best offensive player for me on this list. Nico Collins, number 3.
Number 4.
Derek Stingley Jr., top 2, definitely top 3 cornerback in the league. To me, Derek Stingley Jr., and when you look at this list, you want to talk about guys that you trust to do their job at an elite level. Derek Stingley Jr.'s got to be toward the top of the list. I got him ranking in at number 4.
Number 5, Cinco.
Azeez Al-Shaair, the middle linebacker, the leader of I think the unquestioned leader of the defense, despite Will Anderson Jr. being the best player, not just on the defense, but on the team. Everybody looks to Azeez Al-Shaair for leadership, and I think he really stepped up his game last year, going from like really good to great as a Pro Bowler last year. So I thought he was really good.
And quite frankly, I wouldn't want to be someone that gets hit by him. That guy knows how to lay the wood. All righty, here we go. Number 6.
Kamari Lassiter, number 6, and we're talking about guys that can do their job at an elite level. I don't know if you would look at Kamari Lassiter as elite per se, but he's like consistently good, always good almost. So I think Kamari Lassiter's got to be up there. And you talk about a guy that was an instant starter as soon as he was drafted here in the 2nd round out of Georgia, has been a constant and consistent player for them over the last couple of years. He's got to be ahead of C.J. Stroud on this list for me.
Number 7.
Kalen Bullock, the safety, the Pro Bowl safety for them, right? This is a turnover machine, a guy that you can really rely on to go out there and make big plays for you, possess the ball, get you the ball back. Kalen Bullock's got to be ahead of C.J. Stroud on this list as well at number 7.
Man, it's starting to feel like Paxton Lynch or Aaron Rodgers on draft night right now if I'm C.J. Stroud.
You're waiting in the green room, starting to sweat your suit out a little bit. Yeah.
I knew it was going to be a rough showing on this list when B. Scott prefaced it by saying, I could have put the kicker in front of there, but I'm not going to put the kicker.
I felt that was important, that his name wasn't going to come up. But I thought about here's the thing, Zach. I thought with this exercise way too much about the doggone kicker. I don't. To me, if you're doing a list and your quarterback, you want your quarterback to appear on it, obviously, he needs to come ahead of the kicker without a doubt. And he did not. So that's where we are.
Number 8.
Jalen Petrie, their nickel defender / safety / really like a hybrid linebacker. He's really a linebacker masquerading as a defensive back, but it all works. I'm talking about, we mentioned Azeez Al-Shaair earlier, but this guy's right there with him in terms of laying the wood. Just go ask Rashee Rice about that if you got any questions about it. Now he's rocking that Guardian cap, and he looks even more like a maniac. So Jalen Petrie's got to be on this list.
Number 9.
Finally, C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud checks in at number 9 on this list. And look, let's just be real about it. You'd like for the quarterback to be a lot higher. You'd like for him to be a lot higher, but he's number 9 on this list. I thought you actually could have perhaps argued. This is where, somewhere around here is perhaps where Kaimi Fairbairn would have checked in. But C.J. Stroud, look, I trust C.J. Stroud up to a point, right? Like, I know where his talent's at. I know that he's built of all the right stuff. Like, I think he's got the right work ethic and the right attitude and the talent, but there's just something missing. There's something missing that he hasn't tapped into from that rookie year that I'm searching for going into this year. It's the reason why he comes in so late on this list. And if you notice here, and I'm sure you did, 7 of the top 8 players that I have on this list are defensive players. Only one player in the top 8, and that's Nico Collins at number 3, are offensive players. You'd like for your quarterback to be somewhere in that mix.
Two players that I just want to throw you on the offensive side of the ball that I'm curious how close of a decision it was for you.
Okay.
Dalton Schultz.
He's literally next. I don't want to show my chicken scratch, but I will to the camera here on YouTube. You can actually see Dalton. I have the list handwritten, old school, right here. Dalton Schultz comes in at 10, and I got Kaimi Fairbairn over here to the side because I didn't want to include him and get too cute. But he's number 10, and I think, honestly, you could flip-flop a couple of these, right? Like, you can, I think, quibble a little bit with the order of some of these guys, right? Like Lassiter and Azeez at 5 and 6, or Azeez and Lassiter at 5 and 6, Stroud and Schultz at 9 and 10. You could easily make the case for Schultz as somebody who had his best year as a Texan last year, as reliable as anybody on the offense, and knows the offense better than anybody out there. So he was really close, but I had C.J. Stroud tapping in just ahead of him.
All right, and this one I think will surprise people that I'm even bringing it up in the conversation, and maybe it would have been, if you got his production from like 3-4 years ago, maybe it's a different conversation. Did you all consider Wyatt Teller?
I did. I actually did, but the thing is, Wyatt Teller is a part of, I don't know, it was hard for me to get any of the offensive linemen on this list, to be honest with you. Like, as a group, right, like I know this is an individual list or a list about individual players, but as a group together, they have so much to prove, and I think how the guy next to you plays matters so much that I kind of just took a little bit of a reservation about really anybody on that offensive line. But Wyatt Teller, like prime Wyatt Teller, would be, I think, somewhere in the top 5 to 7 on this list, and certainly ahead of C.J. Stroud, to the point. Certainly ahead of C.J. Stroud.
So the numbers go, what was it, 7 defensive players, 1 offensive player, right?
Yeah.
And then you got C.J. at 9?
Yeah. So seven defensive players, 1 offensive player in the top 8. I don't know if you did MySpace back in the day, but my top 8 does not include C.J. Stroud. It's just 1 offensive player and 7 defensive players.
There's a whole lot more that we got to get to off this list because I think there's a big takeaway from it. We'll get to it later on in the show. Also, I have seen a little more of you on social media, B. Scott, since doing these shows, and I think we're very similar in the reality TV department. I also have a Netflix show that I just watched the other night that I got to get your thoughts on. So I'll have some fun the rest of the way. We got 2 more hours to play. We'll kick off hour number 2 next, and we'll get Todd Haley's thoughts. He's a former NFL offensive coordinator in this league, a former NFL head coach. We'll get his thoughts on C.J. Stroud and also what Nick Caley could do better here with another year with his quarterback, as it's a make-or-break year for the Texans quarterback. Zach L.B. coming on back in 5.
But I'm here.
Houston, starting Thursday, August 13th, Sports Radio 610 is moving to the FM dial. Introducing 95. Houston. On Odyssey Sports Station, the Texans play here. Live from the West Point Lincoln and West Point Lincoln of Sugarland Studios, it's Sports Radio 610 Weekends.
That's right. Zach Gell, B. Scott here with you for the next 2 hours. Sports Radio 610 in Houston. We're gearing you up for the start of the Texans season with training camp right around the corner. Let's go out to the guest line right now. A lot of questions about the quarterback and C.J. Stroud. A lot of other questions around the league. So we'll not only talk Texans here, but also go around the other 31 teams. And we'll do so with the man that was a head coach in this league, also spent many years as an offensive coordinator. And that, of course, is Todd Haley, kind enough to join us. Coach, it's Zach Gelb and B. Scott. Appreciate the time. How are you?
Hey, Zach and B. How you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. So you have an offensive mind in this league. You've seen a lot of good quarterback play. Through 3 years, there's been a lot of questions about C.J. Stroud, even though he's been in the playoffs 3 straight years and has won a playoff game. What is your evaluation of the Texans' young quarterback so far through 3 years?
Well, I don't have questions about him, Zach. I think he is still a young quarterback, but ultra-talented. I would love to be around that guy. I just love his demeanor. He doesn't get frazzled very easily. I know what the playoffs looked like and some of that. I know what last year looked like, but you know, you can't not fault CJ. I mean, he has to take some accountability for that. But I think it was I think young coordinators have a tendency when a quarterback has a rookie year like CJ did to just put it all on their shoulders. And he's still a young quarterback. He has very little experience. I mean, what he's done has been really impressive. Now it's a team game, and the quarterback is always the guy in the limelight. But, you go to the playoffs your first 3 years, you win them, and then, some things, obviously, like I said, last year didn't look so good. This year in the playoffs specifically. But I felt this feeling of they were kind of when – 3rd and 10, hey, CJ, bail us out. You have to protect your young quarterbacks, and I don't think that's always happened. And the fault I place on him is just understand what this defense is you have. It's okay to punt. It's okay to throw the football away. And now for a competitor, that's really hard. I thought when he saw Davis Webb last year win a bunch, not playing at a very high level, and he's sitting on the sideline, that he might – recognize some of that, but I think that falls on D'Amico, falls on Nick Caley to continue to communicate and educate him that listen, we're not worried about stats, and that's the problem. The entire football population of fans, they fall into stats, but the name of the game is winning games and do what you have to win games. And if I got a defense like I think the Texans are going to have again this year. I've been saying on Sirius XM a bunch that I think this is going to be a defense that we might stack up with the 85 Bears, wow, the 2000 Ravens. I think they have a chance to be phenomenal. And if you have that, it doesn't make you a bad quarterback because you play smart.
When you look at his future, clearly you believe in him, but the price tag just keeps on going up and up for these quarterbacks. We're talking $55, $60+ million a year. Would you be fine if the Texans gave him that, like maybe the next week or two, or do you want to just see more from him?
That's up to them. I'd love to see him signed and just, put that behind him and move forward. I mean, this guy's won a lot of games. He like I said, I mean, not many rookie, first 3-year quarterbacks make it to the playoffs every year. So I'd love to see him get signed. I don't, the number's going to continue to go up. So, that falls in the lap of D'Amico and the Texans organization to decide what they want to do. Now, I don't have a problem with them saying, hey, prove it. This is a prove it year. But again, that comes with, a little double-edged sword too, because, you don't want your young quarterback, going into year 4 thinking he's got to do more than he has to. I mean, like I said, just go out and win games. Do what you have to win games. And I think every Texans fan will be happy.
So you mentioned earlier Nick Caley, and I think that's a big part of this entire story, the C.J. Stroud narrative. Going into year 2, from year 1 to year 2 under Nick Caley's offense, I'm just curious from you, what did you make of how they implemented that offense in year one? And just from your experience, how much can you reasonably expect to be better from year two to year one, or from year one to year two?
Well, I think it's got to get better. It is a young guy that it was his first go-round doing it. We got a lot of young guys in the league right now doing it for the first time, but Nick, now he's got a year under his belt. It's just a matter, like I said, you can't get caught up in stats. What I love about Mike Vrabel, D'Amico Ryan, Sean Payton, Sean McVay, they go into every game with, what do we have to do to win? I always tell the story that when I was with the Steelers, every single Friday, Mike Tomlin would come in my office. I knew what it was about, and I'd say, how many do we need to score? And some weeks it'd be 20, some weeks it'd be 30, some weeks it'd be 30 plus, and that kind of told me, the mentality that I had to take the offense into each and every game. And I love that. I don't get caught up in stats, and I know, like I said, the whole world does, and they love it, and it's easy to gravitate towards. But, this is about wins and losses, and what do we have to do to win? So I think Nick Caley, again, another year under his belt, the more he understands. I'm in Pittsburgh, our defense, our older great players had retired. The Troy Polamalos and the Ike Taylors and the Brett Kiesels and all those guys had gotten older, and they moved on to the next part of their life. So I didn't have that defense that Nick Caley has. I'm just telling you, if I had that defense, I'm playing it close to the vest. I'm under center. I'm running the football and play action, because they're really, really good, and I think they're just going to get better. Reed Blankenship in there, I think, is going to be a great addition. This is a legit group over there. They can run, can put pressure on the passer. They can cover. They run and tackle, run and hit. So if I'm Nick Caley, I'm like, okay, good. I don't care if we only score 20 points a game. If it gets us 12, 13 wins, let's go.
Yeah, Ty, I was actually going to ask you about the defense. I had to double back on the 85 Bears comparison. You just kind of alluded to it there, of why you think that is, but I got to get you to go into more of that. Like, you've seen a lot over your time. Why do you feel like this defense could compare to one of the all-time greats, if not the all-time great, in the 85 Bears?
I don't see any weaknesses. I grew up in Pittsburgh with my father with the Steelers in 1976. That defense doesn't get enough recognition. But Bradshaw went out, Mike Kruzek, who was just a backup at best. I mean, and they won 10, 11 games in a row because the defense only gave, I think they had like 7 shutouts and over the last half of the season gave up, an average of 9 points a game. That's one of the great defenses. But I was there. I mean, I was on the sideline as a young kid, water boy, towel boy, whatever I was at that stage. But I don't know. I don't see any weaknesses in this group. I really don't. And if health isn't an issue, like I said, I mean, Reed being there, I think is big. He's kind of a quarterback, ball hawk type dude that the ball just comes to him. I like the entire group, and I love D'Amico and the energy that he brings to the group. And I would not want to play this defense as an offensive coordinator.
Todd Haley here with us. You've been in many locker rooms. You alluded to it. You've been in locker rooms where the offense is great, the defense is not so much, and vice versa. How much tension could there maybe be in a locker room when the defense is at potentially an all-time great level and the offense maybe is holding the team back?
Well, I mean, I think we all, we know Buddy Ryan and that whole thing in Houston. It can be contentious, but I think that's where the leadership ultimately is responsible. And like I said, I think D'Amico is an excellent leader, not just a great defensive coach, but, I think head coaches, they get pigeonholed into, he's a defensive coach or he's an offensive coach. The head coach has to manage the entire team. And part of it is just that, to make sure that, that there is no contention, between the two groups, and that's what training camp's for. Why I love teams that go away for training camp. I think that's, you start to build something that can't be measured, and that's chemistry, team chemistry, family, all those things. And complementary football And B, you know this. I mean, it is a critical part of being a successful team. And I think when teams embrace that and say, all right, offense, you're struggling, we got you, or offenses say, we got you, defense, don't worry, then you start to feel that feeling of everybody's together, in it together, and then it becomes a beautiful thing. So, I have high expectations for this team this year.
When you just get back into this offense and you look at how you would say, okay, just ask the coach how many points you need out of me, and maybe it's a little bit conservative, how could that maybe impact the quarterback? Does the quarterback just got to be comfortable in his own skin, or is it just one of those situations, Todd, where it's like, no, this is just what we're telling you what to do? Because I wonder if the quarterback is playing a little bit scared, if that could impact the team.
Yeah, no, you never want that. I mean, you don't want to take the stinger away from a quarterback. I mean, I would think within that conversation, it's conversations I've had with Kurt Warner or Ben. Listen, you're gonna make mistakes, but you're good enough to make up for them. But I do think that play calls you can protect. You're in this case, in CJ's case, a young quarterback. On 3rd and 12 doesn't mean just, max protect and drop back and say CJ's going to make a play or Nico's going to make a play or whatever it is. It's okay to hand off a run on 3rd and long. It's okay to throw a short screen to a receiver because, the fans might boo and all that, but, as long as you put it on yourself as the play caller, hey, CJ, I did that. That's what I felt was best to do at that time. It had nothing to do with you or my belief in you, but, we've seen him drop back in 3rd and long situations and be under great duress and then make mistakes that we didn't see in that first year when I think it was really a little more conservative, for a rookie quarterback. So I think it's just figuring all that out, having the conversations, communicating with him, he and Nick communicating a bunch. Like I said, those conversations with Mike T meant a lot to me because I would immediately sit down with Ben before we went into the offensive meeting. And I'd say, hey, listen, this is going to be a game where we got to let it all out. We got to let it all hang out. Or this is a game where we need Le'Veon to get 25-plus carries. And I think if you communicate and you go through the process and the quarterback understands it, which I know CJ would. I mean, he's a smart guy. He gets it. It's like the name of the game is winning the game, and whatever we got to do to win it, we got to do it. And obviously within a game, things change and circumstances change and what you thought might happen doesn't happen. So then you got to adjust. But I think it just comes down to play caller, head coach, and quarterback all being on the same page going into a game of how we have to play to win.
Another big piece of it, Todd, though, as you know, is the offensive line. And you talked about C.J. Stroud being under duress. Last season, the Texans' offensive line, we're just being honest about it, they didn't run block well, they didn't pass block well. Now, they've tried to remake it. My question for you is, do they have the requisite offensive line and weapons around C.J. Stroud and around Nick Caley to ultimately be successful?
Well, I think the addition of Wyatt Teller, a veteran guy that knows how to play, is big. I think, the thing that it's really going to key on is this young guy, Rutledge playing center, because center, it's such an underappreciated how important that position is for not only the whole offensive line, but the quarterback, and how much, he can take off of CJ's shoulders. We know Tom Brady, he wanted to point out the mic and set the protection and all that, which that's what he thrived in. Kurt Warner knew every protection, every blitz, everything there was, but he would come to me and say, hey, can our center, handle, just the adjustments so I can worry about where I'm throwing the football. I just want to know when I'm hot or, when I have to get rid of the ball. So everybody's a little different, but when you have a center, now we're talking about a young guy that's being asked to come in and into the NFL world where it's much more exotic, a lot more things to worry about, obviously. So I would think that center position is going to be really key. If Kalen Rutledge can get his feet under him and settle in and be the player they think he can be, I would think that's a big part. David Montgomery being there. I think that's a big piece. You got a running back that's pretty darn good. So, it doesn't mean run the football on every first down, but, let's commit to the run. Let's make sure we don't come out of this game running the ball 11 or 12 times and making CJ throw it 40. I think there is a balance you got to find, and that takes discipline. Tank Dell, I think, is big. It's sounding all positive, at least what I've heard. You guys may know more, but, I know, he and CJ have a really good relationship. I love Tank Dell. If he's able to get back into the mix and play a role, I think that's big because, I don't have any problem with the front three. Nico's one of my favorite receivers in the league. Higgins looks like he's got a chance to be a good one. Noel, the former college teammates. So if Tank can get back in the mix, I think that would be big also.
I'm just wondering your coaching style on this. Like, the opinion right now around the league isn't at the best with CJ. He's not going to make this top 100 list. He wasn't really on that ESPN poll with coaches and executives. Would you kind of use that to your advantage and maybe try to motivate him a little bit in those meetings, or is that just not how it goes down?
Oh, I think it's an ideal situation. I'd much rather be Nick Caley and D'Amico Ryans than be Sean McVay right now, where the entire NFL world is picking them to win the Super Bowl. That's the worst situation to be in because you are managing expectations nonstop. Where I think D'Amico, he's been around, he gets it. This is a great opportunity to fly under the radar. Communicate that to CJ, hey, nobody thinks you're any good, but I believe in you. And I think it could end up being a really good thing for all parties involved.
How about your buddy Mike Tomlin? I know we've mentioned him a little bit. You think he's done coaching or will make a triumphant return to the league one of these days?
I think he's going to be awesome at TV, and I think people will love hearing his commentating. He's just so smart and knows football inside and out. But this guy is football through and through. I don't know. I can't speak for Mike, but I don't know that that'll be enough for him. I would, if you made me make a bet, I would think next year this guy's going to be coaching. And if I'm a owner, I'd be hiring him really quick.
And you look at some of those destinations on where he could go next. Like, could you see him maybe going to New York with the Jets? They got a young nucleus, 3 first-round picks coming up this year. Could you see Mike Tomlin in the Big Apple?
Well, you got to know I coached Aaron Glenn with the Jets and the Cowboys, so I can't pick spots, especially when it comes to New York. I know Mike loves New York. His wife's a fashion person that's really good at what she does. But I love Aaron Glenn. I'm going to support him and root for him throughout the year, so don't put me in that spot.
Todd, don't you think that Mike's just going to be so good at TV? Like, I could see it kind of being like Bill Cowher, but no disrespect to Bill, but I think Mike's going to be so much better on TV than Bill ever has been. I think he's going to find a spot and really, like, make a new name for himself, honestly. I don't know. You know him better than I do.
I think he's going to be phenomenal. I really do. This is one of the smartest people I've ever been around. He knows, like I said, he was the defensive, he ran the defense, but there wasn't an offensive meeting that he missed and didn't have input in, at least with us coaches and just trying to enlighten us to what defenses were doing. He loves football, man. I've been around some great coaches. Bill Parcells is my original mentor, Dan Henning, Bill Belichick. I've been around some great ones, but Mike Tomlin in this day and age, it was really unbelievable what he brought to the building every single day. That team meeting, the presentation, and how he would motivate the entire team, and then the entire team's paying attention on the practice field about the different points he made or who was competing. The one bone, 2 dogs. He put up 2 players' pictures that, hey, one of you is going to get pads this week, one of you is not. And every player on the team would be watching that competition go down. He's unbelievable. He loves football. He lives, eats, drinks football. I mean, it would be hard for me. He'd be like a caged animal, I think, in a TV booth for too long.
Todd Haley, before we let you run, I know you were in Cleveland for a little bit. If they go Deshaun Watson, who hasn't been a good quarterback in a long time, over Shedeur Sanders, which I think a lot of people are thinking that's the way it's going to go, how would you react to it?
Cleveland is just a mess right now. I feel for Todd Monken. You not only Deshaun's still there, that shocks me. When we heard Jimmy Haslam get up and say we swung and missed, I would have thought, you cut bait and move on. Well, he's still there. You draft 2 quarterbacks last year. You draft another one this year. I mean, and only the way Cleveland could do it, Deshaun Watson might go out, have a great year, and then they got to make a decision on what they're going to do.
Oh, that would be a disaster. But you're not wrong, because it just kind of Cleveland, and that's what happens. Hey, one more before we let you run. Just Cam Ward, new coaching staff, Saleh coming in, Brian Daboll coming over from the Giants, where he was the head coach of the offensive coordinator inside the AFC South. How worried should Texans fans maybe be about Cam Ward?
I think he's going to be a good one. I really do. I mean, the fact that he survived a really tough year last year, that's a really positive sign. He did not get any help across the board. A million drops. I mean, I can remember his dad, the clips of the camera going to him in the stands after a big drop, and his dad just looks like he was about to keel over. He didn't get a lot of help. But he survived it, and I think that's a really big positive. Kind of like Caleb Williams surviving that rookie year. Just the fact that he left standing, even though Cam got hurt right in that last game. But I think the coaching is going to be really critical. I think the team is going to be better. But I don't think they're ready to threaten, even though the South is kind of wide open right now. But I think, if they win 6, 7, 8 games, I think that would be a really good sign that Tennessee's moving in the right direction, and Cam Ward. But I like him.
He's former NFL offensive coordinator, head coach Todd Haley, now doing a great job with Sirius XM NFL Radio. Todd, appreciate the time on the weekend. Thanks so much for doing it.
Thanks, Todd.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. You guys have a great Sunday.
You got it. There he is, Todd Haley. We'll react to that conversation on the other side. It's Sports Radio 610 Weekends. He's B. Scott. I'm Zach Gelber. Back in 5 minutes.
Houston, starting Thursday, August 13th, Sports Radio 610 is moving to the FM dial. The voices you trust, the sports talk you love, louder, clearer, and better than ever. A new era begins on August 13th with Houston's sports leader, 95.7 The Fan.
apply.
Live from the West Point Lincoln and West Point Lincoln of Sugar Land studios, it's Sports Radio 610 Weekends.
Yo, Zach Yell, B. Scott here with you. Sports Radio 610 Weekends. We'll take you up until 3 p.m. today. Good stuff there with Coach Todd Haley joining us on the other side. And it's crazy, B. Scott, because you go into a conversation like that, and you expect my biggest takeaway from that conversation would be about what an offensive mind had to say about the quarterback, since the quarterback's the most polarizing thing with this football team. And we all wax poetic on this defense. But to the level he did, he mentioned the 85 Bears. I couldn't believe that.
Dude, it's the first thing that I wrote down as my notes or from my notes in the conversation. And I had down to ask him about the defense, just him as an offensive mind. As a former offensive coordinator in the league and a head coach, my thought was to ask him what impresses you most about the defense, what stands out to you most about the defense. But, man, before we could even get there, he was already, as you mentioned, waxing poetic about said defense, calling them the 85 Bears, or at least saying they had the potential to be that. I think here locally, we all have a lot of confidence in the defense, so that wasn't necessarily surprising to hear that somebody was high on them. But to hear him go straight to that, like we didn't have to really that wasn't pulling teeth. We didn't have to really probe that out of him. He volunteered that. So that's a huge compliment to what they have. And then after that, when we ask him the follow-ups, how he says that they don't have any weaknesses, that's another part where you kind of try to pick apart the roster, pick apart the defense. It's really hard to do that with the Texans.
You look at this defense, we all know how great it is, but there's just a different level. Like, if I ask you some of the great defenses of all time, like, right away, the early 2000 Ravens, the 85 Bears, the Steel Curtain Steelers, the Purple People Eaters with the Minnesota Vikings. Like, there's just the LOB, Legion of Boom. Yep. There's so many that just come to mind. I almost wonder this, like, hey, they win a Super Bowl, this goes down as an all-time great defense. Duh, obvious statement. Do you think we need to see a little bit more personality from this defense? Because, like, I look at guys like Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, like guys that I just trust. Derek Stingley, another guy that I just trust. Do you think there needs to be a little bit more of some consistent loudmouths on this defensive side of the ball?
Well, that is where, save for Derek Stingley, that is where the secondary comes into enters the chat, comes into play, if you will, because Kamari Lassiter, full of personality. I think Kamari Lassiter and Kalen Bullock together, I think the more the nation, I think locally we are already pretty familiar with those two guys, but they're just going into their third season. So last year they were second-year guys. The more they sort of emerge, I think the more you'll sort of see the personality of this defense. And Derek Stingley kind of foils into that perfectly as, like, the perfect balance of that, as somebody that never says anything ever, to the point to where it's almost kind of funny. But I would say the secondary has some personality. There is just something to the fact that their two best players, and we went over this earlier, to me, Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter are the two best players on the team. I think there's something to be said for, like, the defensive guys, but the two best players being, like, almost like Boy Scouts, if you will. Right? They're so nice or quiet in Danielle Hunter's case. Like, you don't know if Danielle Hunter is mean, nice, happy, sad. He doesn't say anything. And Will Anderson Jr. is basically like I say this all the time, I want my son to follow the guy around and kind of just take notes. He's kind of one of those types of guys, whereas you're used to, especially defensive linemen, having that edge to them, being maybe a little bit kind of crazy, and they don't necessarily give that. But I think the more you kind of watch them, the more you'll get a feel for their personality.
Do they need a nickname?
We've tried it, man. We've tried it. I think what was the last year was like, because they're doing this thing about none of the ones that they've had have stuck, and they've all been really bad. And so that's the tough part. This might be something that we need to outsource. For whatever reason, nothing that has stuck locally or that has come up locally has really stuck for them. But I think they do. I think they do need a nickname. This is something that we should workshop and should think about.
This is going to be I don't think it's that good. Because, like, the Texans, it's tough to do something with the Texans. Like, you're not going to call them, like, the tackling Texans.
No, that's terrible.
Like that.
That's terrible. So, their mantra, they do have, like, a mantra that some people, I think there's there's a little bit of back and forth on how cool it is versus how corny it is, but it is their like official mantra is like this swarm mentality, swarm. And we even had T-shirts for the playoffs last year.
Swarm, yeah.
Where it said Swarm City on the, I almost even wore it today. But I think that only hits locally. See, even the way you recoiled just there. I don't know.
Like Swarm City. What the heck are we talking about? Like, where are we talking about? Like, I wouldn't know if you just asked me that.
But you'll know the defense. Like, you gotta brand it. I mean, it's gonna take some branding. You're gonna have to do some word association here.
Yeah.
But I mean, where's the Legion of Boom? You don't have to tell me where the Legion is. We kind of just know where it's at. So this would have to catch on. But I think there's a reason why Swarm City hasn't really caught on. The defense itself has, but that name has kind of stayed local, and I think it's, dare I say, because it's not that good.
So one thing I will say is before in the early 2010s, you had the Bulls on Parade.
Yeah.
Right? Why not create a second iteration of that is kind of my thought, because you think Bulls, you're going to think something with horns. There's not too many teams with horns in this league. In fact, I think Texans might be the only one besides the Rams. You think about it. So.
Yeah, I think there's just something about it having been done before.
Yeah, that's true.
And Zach, I'm pretty sure you haven't even heard of that, right? So like we would have to still recreate it on a national scale. Everybody here locally will know Bulls on Parade, but like I don't know how much better that is than Swarm City. You know,
just don't be wearing those starter jackets again before a big game, all right? Just don't be doing that.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I remember watching that Patriot Texans, and I was like, oh, they come walking all in, J.J. Watt and company. I go, ooh.
So, Zach, you know what my hot take is on the Letterman jackets, okay? So they were Letterman jackets. I actually thought that they were decent enough gear, but like for fans or for like to sell at the store.
It was cool gear.
Don't wear it don't have the players wear them to the game. Sell them at the team store. I might have even bought one. I thought they were really cool looking, just not for the players all wearing them together to the game like they were some kind of high school squad. And then to go out there, like if you're going to do it, you got to go out there and dominate like the best varsity team that ever played.
I was going to say, if you're going to show up looking like varsity, you got to play like varsity, not like the freshman squad.
You got to back it up, and they didn't.
You can't look like Zach Gelb playing high school football, all right?
Yeah, you know what? I thought they looked good, but they played so poorly that it made it look even worse, right? Like wearing them together and then playing as bad as they did.
I'm workshopping this one. Workshopping it. And maybe this could go for Aziz. I think it fits him. How about the Houston Hunters?
Ooh.
That's not bad.
You know what, though? Like, far be it from me, because I'm not Mr. PC guy. But I feel like that. I feel like that might ruffle a little feathers, or if they.
I don't think Goodell would like it because of Bounty Gate.
Yeah,
right?
Hunters is going to be tough. Hunters is going to be tough in 2026.
Wait, but hold on, and it factors in a little bit Daniil Hunter. I didn't even think about it that way. You know, you make it plural, but Houston Hunters, Daniil Hunter. I think it's more so just the mentality of hitting the crap out of the quarterback.
Yeah, and Texans do have a background and history of hunting, right? Hunting and fishing. Yeah. You know, we're outdoorsmen out here. Like it could actually play and wouldn't even necessarily have to be like the wrong political statement of head hunting or anything like that. But I don't know. I feel like Goodell might try to nip that one in the bud or discourage them from that one. I actually like it. I like it. I'll say that.
Well, F him. This is what we'll do, B. Scott. Let's throw some money into the hopper. Throw it into the jar. We'll make some money. We'll do Houston Hunters. You'll put Daniil Hunter on the shirt. You'll put Will Anderson on the shirt. And get a few more defensive players on there. And I think we could try to make it go viral for this season of Texans football.
Look, I don't hate it. And you can check out the chat, too, the YouTube chat. They're coming in with some pretty funny ones that I think are even worse politically that we can't use, but funny nonetheless. Raging Bulls is in there. I think that's
official head busters.
Official head busters is hilarious. Bayou Killers. I don't think we want to go with anything killers, but I actually kind of like it. I'm not gonna lie. Swarmageddon is a good one. Actually, that one's come up.
Good one.
Swarmageddon has come up when we've done this before over the summer, and I forgot it. I'm glad that somebody dropped that one in there. Swarmageddon is actually not bad.
That's top of my list now.
I like Swarmageddon.
Yeah.
I like it.
How unloyal, how disloyal you are, Jordan. Here I am suggesting Houston Hunters. Something else comes up, and you go jump on there. Jeez.
Look, Houston Hunters is a good one, but I feel like that's specified for one person.
I was thinking
if you're going on the Daniil Hunter.
No, I think it's really more for Aziz, if I'm just being transparent.
Well, but in that case, there's two guys. And to the point, the whole doggone defense is a bunch of hunters, right? Like, to be fair. But Swarmageddon, I appreciate Ocho in the chat for mentioning that one, because that's kind of a deep cut. We did this earlier in the summer where we were like, what should the Texans' nickname be? We've done this segment before, and Swarmageddon is the one that I forgot about, but it is the best one that I can remember coming up. Swarmageddon. I like it. Put it on a T-shirt.
The other thing, too, is from the conversation with Todd Haley. I think the dynamic in the locker room, it shows why they have the right coach in D'Amico Ryans. Because you remember the Legion of Boom, and I know it was different because it happened in the Super Bowl where they elected to not give the ball to Marshawn Lynch, and then Russell Wilson threw the ball to Malcolm Butler, and the Butler did it. But after that team was just an absolute mess, and had a quarterback like Russell Wilson, they had a running back like Marshawn Lynch. They had really good players on the offensive side of the ball. But the fact that we haven't heard too many issues, defense, defense right now, where if you get on a seesaw, the defense puts you all the way up here, and the offense is like a fat kid just sitting on the ground, where the imbalance has been there. I think that speaks to the leadership of a man that they used to call Mufasa when he was a player in this league.
Yeah, well, and also shout out to Todd for just being a guy that's been around. He was able to immediately pull a local example of how this tension, offensive, defensive, can manifest itself not just in real life in the locker room, but on the freaking sideline, man. He points out Buddy Ryan and Kevin Gilbride from way back in, I think, the 1993 season, where I think it was Cody Carlson who had committed a fumble instead of running out the clock with just a few seconds left in the first half. And then they're over there in fisticuffs. Buddy Ryan actually punching Kevin Gilbride on the sideline. Now, I don't think we're anywhere close to that here in Houston now, but that's a local example of how that tension can actually manifest itself. Again, I don't think we're close enough to that, but you do want, no matter which side of the ball that it is that's not carrying its weight, for them to do that sort of promptly. Again, last year was this excruciating example of an opportunity wasted. I talk about the opportunity cost of last year all the time, where you had a defense that was good enough to get you to the Super Bowl and maybe even win you one if your offense could have just been at least average, never mind slightly above that.
Could you imagine if that's how we did radio? Like, if I didn't like something that you did in a segment, B. Scott, and I didn't think you were carrying your weight just during the break, I walked down and over there and just punch you in the mouth?
Dude, it would not be great for morale. It would not. It would not. But imagine how interesting of a show. You know, I'm ultimately here for the show. Yeah. So imagine how interesting of a show it would if we were just
keep the YouTube feed rolling.
Yeah, we're just beating the hell out of each other, and then after every break, one of us has a new abrasion of some sort. It's like, oh, there's Zach's busted lip. Oh, B. Scott's nose is broken. What's that shiner over Zach's head? Oh, B. Scott's got like a cut on his jaw now. You know, it's like we start the show super handsome and end it looking like busters.
Yeah, didn't that happen a few years ago in Houston radio? I remember seeing it on social media at a different station that someone got a little tussle.
It got close. Yeah. It wasn't actual physical, but let's just say this. Words were said, and one of those guys is here now.
Patrick Creighton, right?
Patrick Creighton, that's right.
Yeah.
But words were said, and shout out to Patrick Creighton for being far more professional in that setting than I would have been. Let me just tell you that. Because, Zach, we're fortunate we're not in the same room, because if you talk to me like that man talked to Patrick, there would be some furniture moving.
There'd be some tussling. There'd be some Swarmageddon.
Hey, for real though. I go Aziz Al-Shaair on you real quick. Or Jalen Petrie.
All right, he's B. Scott. I'm Zach Gill right here on Sports Radio 610. We'll take a timeout. When we do come on back, with football season right around the corner, with training camps opening up around the league, let's take a look inside the rest of the AFC South. You know how we think about the Texans. They're a team that can contend for the Super Bowl this year if C.J. Stroud is just average. How about the other three teams in the division? We'll discuss them next.
Houston, starting Thursday, August 13th, Sports Radio 610 is moving to the FM dial.
SportsRadio.com.
Live from the West Point Lincoln and West Point Lincoln of Sugarland Studios, it's Sports Radio 610 Weekends.
Hanging out on a Sunday. Zach Yell, B. Scott here with you. All righty, B. Scott, let's go around the rest of the AFC South. I got a question for each team in the AFC South. I'm curious what your answer is and where your confidence level is at when I ask you that question. Let's start with the Jacksonville Jaguars, excuse me. And I could have easily sat there and said, will there be regression this year with the Jaguars? I think there will be. I do think the Texans are going to win this division. I think some teams will catch up to Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence. They could be a playoff team, but I ultimately think they're going to just miss out. But my question with the Jaguars is, what will Travis Hunter's role be? Because this was a guy that a year ago, and I know he wasn't fully healthy, they moved up in the draft to go get. You thought he was going to be like the Shohei Ohtani of the football world, with him being a great wide receiver and a great corner. And I'm just fascinated now what the role of Travis Hunter is going to be.
Yeah, and it looks like, at least from the tea leaves that I've read through the offseason, that they're going to commit more so to him being a full-time corner and more of kind of like a X factor. Maybe they have a small package of plays or whatever kind of package of plays for him offensively for Travis Hunter. But it does look like he's probably going to play more defense than he plays, or like play defense full time and offense much more part time, than trying to do the thing that I thought was far like less realistic, which is being the Ohtani of football. Like there's a reason why I think, like we've seen it, at least a version of it before in baseball, and have never seen it in football. It's really hard to do and do both full time. So I think the answer to your question is going to be answered pretty early on once we see them out there and he's playing more so the cornerback position. My question more so for the Jags is, are they going to be overly reliant on Trevor Lawrence? Like, is this the thing? Going back to the Todd Haley interview earlier when he was talking about asking too much of C.J. Stroud or putting too much on his shoulders. I don't know if you want to do that for any quarterback, no matter what exactly you think of him. You want him to be able to shoulder that burden, but you don't want to intentionally ask too much of him. And I don't know if you're checking, but they can't really run the football that well. And they just saw their running back in Etienne.
Well, hold on. You got to pronounce his name correctly.
Oh, that's right. He changed it. He changed the
Achan.
Achan. Look, I don't want to be disrespectful, and I don't want to disrespect. Well, I'll call you whatever you want me to call you.
Should have spoke up years ago.
I'm just saying. Like, can I reasonably object to this, right? Like, it looks like ATN, and you ain't never said that it was Achan after all these years. It's not like he just burst on the scene. All of a sudden, we knew this guy since college. Well, we knew him at Clemson.
Yeah, at Clemson.
I mean, come on, we've known this guy for a long time, and he's just now telling us, like, dude, you've been famous for like 5-6 years or longer. I don't know. So either way, okay. So Achan. Or am I saying it right now, Zach?
I think it's Travis Achan or Travis Achan Jr., I think. See, like, we don't even know how to really say his name.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Look, I'll have to check the media guy whenever the Texans play the Jaguars. But the point being, I don't know if they've got enough.
This is the second year this is remember last year, Bijan Robinson wanted to be Bijani Robinson.
Yeah, right.
I then had him on my show, and I've had him on a few times, and I was like, hey, I know it's no longer Bijan Robinson, it's Bijani. And he goes, no, we're back to Bijan. And I'm like, well, make up your damn mind.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here?
Hey, it happened with me before that. The Tyrod or Tyrod Taylor was here for a year.
Oh, yeah.
Tyrod Taylor, yeah.
But he's gone back and forth at least twice, I can tell you, because I feel like everybody was calling him Tyrod.
I've always said Tyrod.
But then he said it was Tyrod.
Yeah.
And then once we got him here in Houston for a year, he was back to Tyrod.
Right.
And so now I'm utterly confused to where he's just going to be called Taylor. He's Taylor now because that's easy enough. I don't think you can remix Taylor.
But now I don't know who you're talking about. But if I just said Taylor, I'd be like, who?
It's going to have to be in the context of a conversation.
I'd be like, Lawrence? He's making a return to the NFL?
It'll have to be context clues.
Yeah.
It'll have to be like that.
Getting back to the Jaguars, though, I think there's a lot to unpack to what you said. Sure, with Travis Hunter, I'm surprised and they're still going to have some packages for him on the offensive side of the ball, but you're right, he's going to play predominantly on the defensive side. I'm just surprised with all they gave up, how quickly they gave up on the idea of him playing both ways to the way that many people envisioned it, but it is the NFL. Offensively, I think you hit it right on the head with putting a lot on Trevor Lawrence's plate, and his health has been in question. And also, I am fascinated to see what Brian Thomas Jr. is. This dude was a dog in year one, like unbelievable. And this year, it seemed like they were trying to trade him for a second-round pick, and no one did bite. I'm curious if he's going to be able to get back to year one, Brian Thomas Jr.
He had the drops. I mean, that was what it came down to. He had the drops. It's the reason why they had to go out and get Jacoby Myers. Like, I think in an ideal world, Travis Hunter, going back to the point about Travis Hunter, he got hurt, and Brian Thomas Jr. had the drops. And I think that's what sort of changed their not just trajectory, but how they pivoted in terms of strategy. They had to go out and get Jacoby Myers at the trade deadline, and now they have to make a decision on Travis Hunter. Do they want to have him full-time both ways? I think those are the two things that sort of helped make that decision, that they needed another weapon, maybe another guy as their number one outside of Brian Thomas, who, again, like you mentioned,
he's kind of a little C.J. Stroud-ish.
Yeah, that's a good.
It's like year one, great. Year two, take a step back. Now we'll see in year three, if you continue to go in the wrong direction, then you get to start to be talked about the way that Stroud was.
Yeah, and he still shows, kind of like Stroud, still shows glimpses. Like, he'll have a moment. I would even say this about Stroud last year. Well, he'll have like a throw or two, maybe a couple of throws in a game where you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. That's what I remember. But he won't necessarily put it together throughout the entire game. Sort of like that with Brian, where he might have a play or two throughout a game, but he'll also have a couple of drops or have a stretch there where he's not playing well. So I think they got a few questions on offense before I can really put them. I think they're still really good. I actually like the Jaguars more than I would like to admit, because I tend to not like the Jaguars. But they definitely got some questions on the offensive side of the ball.
Let's go to Tennessee. Will Brian Daboll unlock Cam Ward? Remember, they also did draft Carnell Tate. So you have another good young wide receiver getting into the fold down there in Tennessee.
Not going to lie to you, Zach, this is one that I am worried about. Because if you just pressed me on it, my answer to this would be yes. Like, I believe in Brian Daboll. I think Cam Ward is ultra talented, and the Carnell Tate move is not a bad one either. Like, I think he's gonna be good really soon, if not immediately. So, short answer is yes, man. I actually think this is gonna look pretty decent. How good does it look in year one? Obviously remains to be seen, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous about it as a Texans fan.
Let's go to Indianapolis. Daniel Jones is now healthy and cleared to be a full participant in training camp after recovering from a torn right Achilles. At one point, there was some MVP talk around Daniel Jones last year, and the Colts reviewed as one of the best teams, if not the best team in football. Do you trust Daniel Jones is the answer in Indy?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm with you.
No way, especially now. Like, even last year felt like a little bit of fool's gold, and I don't want to take away from a guy who was actually playing well, but it felt like a little bit of fool's gold, and then eventually turns into a pumpkin and also gets injured as well. Like, it's one of the – to me, the Colts quarterback situation is one of the least interesting in all of football. Whether it's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, it's just –
you almost forget Richardson's on the roster.
Exactly. It's just not giving me anything. So I'm not worried about their quarterback situation at all. And my short answer to the question of is Daniel Jones the answer is a definitive no for me.
And if he stinks this year, that contract was 2 years, $88 million, and it was $60 million in guaranteed. We see, like, it's not crazy to pay a quarterback $55, $60 million a season. So I guess if he stinks this year or gets hurt again, that you could easily get out of that contract and pivot elsewhere. But
dude,
Daniel Jones,
how about
he just can't get through a full season. And then even if he does, then he can't play well the season after that.
How about all the quarterbacks, though, with the Colts? I mean, I was watching that quarterback series on Netflix, and I was, like, reminded that Joe Flacco was there for a second.
Matt Ryan,
Carson Wentz, Phillip Rivers. I mean, this Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones conglomerate, Jacoby Brissett, like everything that they've tried to do since Andrew Luck retired on them abruptly has fallen flat. So I think this one is going to fall flat again as well.
Talk about a Cleveland quarterback carousel. How about Indy kind of following suit?
Yeah, well, Indy's at least is over the course of years, like them just taking a bunch of different stabs at it, just throwing darts at the wall, trying to see if they can hit a bullseye. Cleveland did the thing where they invited 75 quarterbacks to one training camp, which was insane.
Right.
And also, it's like they made all these invites to the party, Cleveland, and it was like a party you don't really want to go to. At least Indianapolis, they had Peyton Manning, who won a Super Bowl and is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. All righty, last one, because we just got to, of course, take care of the Texans here when I give you a question on each team in the AFC South. Can the offense be Super Bowl good?
Super Bowl good. What is Super Bowl good when you got this kind of defense? I actually think that they can. And the reason why I say that is, despite how underwhelming they were last year, if they had just been what they were in the regular season, and I make this point all the time, if C.J. Stroud and that offense is what it was in the regular season, I think that would have been good enough to get them to the Super Bowl. Now, I think another part of the question is, like, were they lucky last year in the road that it took to get to the Super Bowl? No Patrick Mahomes, no Lamar Jackson, right? No Joe Burrow. All of these guys expected to be back in the mix this upcoming year. But just given what the defense is, I think the offense doesn't have to be great, and Super Bowl good doesn't have to be great for them. Could they be some version of Seattle's offense last year if they can just run the ball credibly, and they've got an amazing weapons in Nico Collins that you could compare to JSN, and C.J. Stroud be something like Sam Darnold? Yeah, I think that's in the realm of possibility. Do they do it is its own question, but I think they absolutely can.
Zach Gelb and B. Scott here with you. We'll take a break. We got one more hour to play on a Sunday, and when we come on back, an old friend is in the news. We'll talk about that, pal, next.
Houston, starting Thursday, August 13th, Sports Radio 610 is moving to the FM dial. to Houston on Odyssey Sports Station. The Texans play here. Live from the West Point Lincoln and West Point Lincoln of Sugarland Studios, it's Sports Radio 610 Weekends.
Yo, Sports Radio 610 Weekends. Zach L.B. Scott here with you. One more hour to play. We got a ton more Texans talk to get to. We'll also get into B. Scott's love for reality TV coming up later because I share that same love. And I got some questions that I got to ask about him. And I'll even give you a non-reality TV documentary recommendation. But I saw an old pal of ours the other day pop back up. And I was like, man, why are the Patriots bringing him in to be a wide receiver? But it wasn't to be a wide receiver. It was to coach. That's right. DeAndre Hopkins is working with the Patriots coaching staff to start training camp. What did you make of that earlier in the week, B. Scott, when you saw that?
So the thing that surprised me the most was just that, well, not only that I just didn't see DeAndre Hopkins necessarily jumping straight into coaching from his playing career, like just immediately, but even more so to the point, like, they're not interested in DeAndre Hopkins as maybe being a possession receiver for them. Like if he's willing to come in as a coach, I figured he'd be willing to come in on some kind of vet minimum as a depth piece. Now, maybe I don't know if his pride or his ego is too grand for that, but like if there's a kind of a last ditch effort to continue your career, and I don't know if DeAndre is motivated to do anything like that. But it would surprise, like it didn't surprise me that he would join the Patriots. It did surprise me that they wouldn't go down the player route before the coaching route.
Yeah, and Mike Vrabel was briefly with the Texans. The only thing is, if you're DeAndre Hopkins, you knew what you once were. You look at 2024 and on, where he played a combined 16 games in 2024 between Tennessee and Kansas City. He just got like 600 yards there. Last year in Baltimore, in 17 games, he only had 22 receptions for 330 yards. I think those numbers kind of show that there's not really much to expect anymore. And you look at New England, they have a good receiving core with A.J. Brown, with Romeo Doubs, Mac Hollins, Kayshon Boutte, just some other guys that are there, like a youngster and a Kyle Williams. I just don't think that there was a spot where he could really contribute. But when a guy is made, $150 million probably in total contracts in the NFL, I am surprised that he didn't take a little bit to decompress and kind of celebrate his accomplishments and just be a regular human being. But that's why these guys are kind of wired this way, where they're all about ball, and there's an opportunity to go contribute and maybe start your coaching career in New England to accelerate up the staff.
Well, also, conspiracy theory here. You tell me if you think that there's anything to this. But could this be his way of inching his way into a depth chart? Right, like because he's
around. Yeah, if there's an injury.
Exactly.
All right, kick the tires, and I could go participate. I don't think it's crazy, but I do think once you make that role, like, okay, I want to be there to coach. I think long term that, or maybe in the short term, if you do take that leap and you go play, then to maybe some of the players go like, oh, well, how much are you trying to help me out in the coaching world if you're just gunning for my job or something like that?
Yeah, but he's DeAndre Hopkins as well, though, right? So they I'm sure, especially if you're a wide receiver, you respect anybody, really, if you're a football player, but especially a wide receiver would respect DeAndre Hopkins, his insight, his experience, his career, his resume. So it's not like, I don't know if you're looking over your shoulder for some of the same reasons that you just laid out. I don't know how much you're looking over your shoulder with DeAndre Hopkins as much as it is like a de facto quasi. Everybody almost understands this is a player coach. Like, couldn't you imagine DeAndre Hopkins out there coaching them but running the same exact drills, like being one of those coaches, kind of like Vrabel, who just does the drills with you because he still views himself as a player.
Udonis Haslem, even though he was still technically playing, but at the end of the time with the Miami Heat, would always joke that he was basically a coach.
Kind of like that. And then, again, like, I think for DeAndre Hopkins, for the same reasons that you already laid out, knew that there wasn't really too many spots for him on a depth chart. And so at that point, you're starting to kind of leverage your connections and who have you played for. And I think him and Vrabel also crossed over, not just here in Houston, but in Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So there's a history there. He can kind of go there with a certain level of comfort that if something goes wrong with some of these younger guys, some of these guys that are actually on the team, that, hey, this might be my best spot or the spot that would be most likely to call me anyway. I might as well just already be in the building and, oh, by the way, maybe collecting a paycheck as well.
It's still wild how we look back at DeAndre Hopkins' time in Houston, where his final season with them, it's wild to say, was in 2019. And when he got traded, that was the beginning to the end of the Bill O'Brien era, because trading him is one thing, but how little they got back for him was another thing. And it was just so ego-driven by O'Brien and company that were ruining this organization at the end, and that kind of started it there with their demise. I still can't believe the trade of DeAndre Hopkins and how shocked I was. Like, I remember it was COVID shows. I was in my basement doing the national show for CBS Sports Radio, and when that deal came out, it was just like, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah, it was just unbelievable. And not just, I think the initial shock of it was that they would trade him at all, but that they would only get a second-round pick and David Johnson back for what DeAndre Hopkins was at the time. And I know fast forward now 5-6 years later, and we can talk about what he is now today. But at that time, you should definitely get better than a second-round pick and an aging and at that point far past his prime running back. So that part of it was shocking. But even past that, Zach, like that was just like the beginning of, I don't know, that was like the culmination, not the beginning. It was like the culmination of a series of bad moves, because they had also traded for Laramie Tunsil the previous offseason, and so they had overpaid in a trade for Laramie Tunsil and then under-received in a trade to send out DeAndre Hopkins. And when you kind of put those two things together, you're kind of like, oh, man, I think the folks that are running this team, Bill O'Brien specifically at the time, but I think the folks running this team don't really know what they're doing, right? And they also had traded Jadeveon Clowney, who they had on the franchise tag. So, like, that collection of moves, not to say what was going on behind the scenes with how it was actually being run around here, was really one of the lowlights in Texans franchise history.
Yeah, with creepy Jack Easterby.
Exactly.
I always got a kick out of that guy. But you look at least the Tunsil move. You gave up a lot, but it was okay. You have a franchise tackle coming on in to protect your young quarterback. Even if it was a lot, I could at least get on board with it. But the Hopkins one just totally erased that move, because it's like, well, you need the quarterback to have someone to throw the ball to.
Yeah.
And that's why I never got it, why he ended up getting traded for, David Johnson, and it was a second-round pick.
Well, also, though, Zach, it was like, it didn't seem like it was actual real football or even real accounting reasons. Like, they could have afforded to, the narrative from back then was that DeAndre Hopkins wanted a slight pay bump. They could have afforded to have given DeAndre Hopkins a slight pay bump. And at the very least, if they didn't, I think they could have weathered whatever storm there would have been tension-wise, because I don't think DeAndre Hopkins was going to, be this super malcontent had he not gotten that pay bump. He's a competitor. So
he's not a diva wide receiver.
Certainly not in that way. I think he's more of he might have a little bit of diva in him, but I think he's way more football and competitor than he is diva, like a little bit more blue collar, for lack of a better term. So I think he would have played ball, and so it was just like, it's not like he was declining as a player, and it's not like you couldn't have afforded him. And so any justification for having done it, absent of actually getting the proper return, just fell flat. And it remains one of the worst moves, I think, in NFL history, but certainly in Houston history, Houston sports history, one of the worst trades any of us can remember.
So actually, kind of talking about this, just maybe a couple days ago, I was actually watching a Jack Easterby documentary on YouTube, and they were highlighting specific things from a story. I forget the site. I'd have to go back and look at it, but it was a pretty prominent site. They were talking about this exact trade and how at one point Jack Easterby had basically said, we have to get that player out of here. Didn't specifically reference and say Hopkins, but the general assumption was he was talking about Hopkins, because it was right around that time when Easterby was starting to kind of sneak up the ladder and really starting to get towards that GM role.
Yeah,
he eventually took over.
Look, it's no mystery that Jack Easterby was that was a Bill O'Brien, Jack Easterby special.
Right, yeah.
They did that together, and that Jack Easterby was likely the driving force behind it. I think that part has been litigated, and most people know that. And it's another reason why it's like, what was this guy really doing running the team in the first place, you know? So
Right.
it definitely glad to be where we are today as opposed to where we were 6 years ago when Hopkins was getting traded.
I think there would be an appetite 5 years from now to see a 30 for 30 on that entire era of Houston Texans football, because you have the Deshaun stuff, you got the rebuild with Caserio, you got DeAndre Hopkins, you got Jack Easterby, you got Bill O'Brien. Like, there was a lot that was going on in that stretch, and it's nice that they got the organization restabilized back on the train tracks. But the Texans, for a while, for a 3, 4, 5 year stretch, for a team, right, that was like always in the playoffs. Like, we'd always used to joke Saturday 4:30 on Wild Card Weekend, it would always be the Houston Texans. That was always a thing. And just to see how quickly it unfolded for a guy in O'Brien who now is viewed as a disaster. But if you're looking for the majority of his tenure, he did a lot of good here. But to see how what happened at the end, it would make for a must-watch 30 for 30 if you got people speaking truthfully about the situation.
Yeah, so Kanye West, before he went crazy, once said that no one man should have all that power.
Yeah.
And this was a classic case of that. This was the quintessential case of that, of Bill O'Brien, when he was a head coach.
Just be a coach.
He was a fine head coach. I don't think he was a great head coach. I don't think he was an awful. I think he was a decent head coach. But once he got all that power, and it's up for debate, and it's been going back and forth on who exactly it was that wanted him to have it. Was he power hungry, or was the power just kind of dumped on his feet? After kind of from the McNair family. But I think we can all reflect on it and say, hey, if he had just been able to be a coach and they had adequate leadership above him, somebody actually in personnel that was running the team, that they could have saved themselves a lot of trouble and a lot of heartache.
And it's wild. You look back at it. He got here in 2014, coming over from Penn State. 9-7, 9-7, 9-7. They had that one terrible 4-12 year. Then they were 11-5 and 10-6. He trades Hopkins. They then start out that 2020 season 0-4, and he's out of a job. Like, just from if you would have looked at that 2019 game where they blew that big lead up against the Chiefs, and if you would have told me that he wouldn't even make it through the 2020 season and that DeAndre Hopkins wouldn't even be on that team, it's just things that I would not have believed. But getting back to Hopkins, is he a Hall of Famer in your mind, B. Scott?
He is. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer. Let me tell you why. I have a very plain criteria. You tell me if you disagree with this, anybody that wants to object to this, but I have a very plain criteria for a Hall of Famer, specifically in the NFL, specifically for football.
Yeah.
But that criteria is, did you make 5 All-Pros? I feel like anybody who makes 5 All-Pros, whether they're consecutive or over a stretch of your career, however long your career is, but to me, if you make 5 All-Pros, first team or second team, any combination of the two, that tells me that you were one of the best players of your era for at least half a decade. And that, to me, is a Hall of Famer. And I would be hard-pressed to find too many guys who do have 5 All-Pros who you would just look at and say, that guy's not a Hall of Famer. You might have a discussion about it. You might have to make the case. But to me, by the time I get to the end of it and you give me 5 All-Pros, more likely than not, that guy was one of the best players of his era. And DeAndre Hopkins has that. It's some combination, either 3 first and 2 seconds or
yep.
2 seconds.
That's a combination.
Yeah, so he's got the 5 All-Pros on top of just like the context around it, all of the different quarterbacks that he was putting these numbers up or putting these performances up with, right? The crazy cast and combination of guys he was playing with. And just imagine if he had some stability at that position from the beginning, which he did not. I think he would have been even better. So, yeah, to be a 5-time All-Pro with no stability at quarterback to the very end of your tenure with the team that you were with speaks a lot to the player that you were. I think he's a Hall of Fame. Maybe not first ballot, but at some point he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, or at least should be, in my opinion.
And
he's going to have to wait.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
I think DeAndre Hopkins is a Hall of Famer. Do I think he's better than Andre Johnson? Personally,
No.
I do not. And they made Andre Johnson, I think, wait 3 years. And historically, the Hall of Fame just abuses these wide receivers. Like, look how long they made Chris Carter wait. Torrey Holt is still not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, man.
Which is
a lot
surprising.
of great ones. There's a lot of great ones, and it's a logjam. It's probably one of the more difficult positions to get in because, I don't know, maybe it's y'all tell me if y'all think maybe running back and wide receiver are like the easiest to identify if a guy was great.
Well,
right.
well also, it's limited real estate. Like, I think they vote just like 5 guys, like 5 players could get in each and every year or whatever it is. So it's like, okay, if we put 1 wide receiver in, we got to go get a lineman in. We got to go get a quarterback in. We got to go get a running back in. It's just, I feel as if a lot of years, they just try to make it one. Like, if you are the wide receiver, there's no other, like, can you get multiple guys in? Sure. But if you're a wide receiver, they try to look at other positions, which I think makes it tough.
Yeah, I do fear that DeAndre Hopkins could turn out to end up being one of those, not like super old guys, but you look up and DeAndre Hopkins is like 50 years old finally getting in. I could absolutely see that being the case, and that would be a shame. I think that's more so about circumstance to the point that you're making about the logjam in the field. But is he a Hall of Fame player? Just that question on the surface of it, I think he absolutely is. And in part because of he's got like that automatic bid of the 5 All-Pros, which makes it an easy argument for me and my standard. But also as somebody that followed his entire career, I think he's easily a Hall of Famer.
And it's wild when you look at DeAndre Hopkins and Andre Johnson, when you look at the total stats. So Andre Johnson, Oh, were you? He played 193 games played. And then DeAndre Hopkins was $195. Receptions, Andre Johnson, 1,062. DeAndre Hopkins, 1,006. Receiving yards, Andre Johnson, 14,185. DeAndre Hopkins, 13,295. Andre Johnson, touchdown 70. DeAndre Hopkins did have 85. Now, we're both in agreement that Andre Johnson's a better player than DeAndre Hopkins, but since they made Johnson wait 3 years, I think they're going to make D-Hop wait like 4 or 5 years. Like, it's wild. Hines Ward was one of the greatest blocking receivers I've ever seen, and a dude that I just would not want to go up against. And, like, Hines Ward doesn't even really get that much love affair for the Hall of Fame. Like, I thought he'd be in by now.
Yeah, I guess it also depends on the field of wide receivers from your era. And I'd have to give this a little bit more thought, but it's
like Reggie Wayne, I don't think is in yet.
You know, he's not in, and I think it's also really competitive from Andre Johnson's era. Like, think about the guys that we're talking about. DeAndre Hopkins, how competitive of an era? Like, I don't think he was ever the best wide receiver in the league. But he was consistently one of the best, and I think just as consistently as anybody from his era. So I think if there's a logjam once he gets there, it's going to be from the previous era before him. But once we get to the guys from his era, I think he'll be right there.
I'd say, kind of looking at the way Johnson's career folded out, another player that was like that, always a very consistent player, one of the better players, but never the guy in the league, except maybe for a year, maybe a year and a half, Larry Fitzgerald. Identical career, same era, always one of the consistents, always one of the great guys, but always just kind of left off the radar because of where they played, right? But everybody, you heard the name, you knew, oh, these guys are fantastic. These guys are surefire Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but that guy at least played in a Super Bowl. Yeah. I feel like that helps.
Wait. We're comparing Larry Fitzgerald to who?
Andre Johnson.
I love Andre Johnson. Larry Fitzgerald's better. And Larry Fitzgerald got in first ballot for 2026. Larry Fitzgerald had arguably the greatest run we've ever seen in the postseason that did not result in a Super Bowl win. I'll get the numbers.
No doubt.
What he did that one year in the postseason was insane. Like, I love Andre Johnson, but I thought that Larry Fitzgerald was a better football player than Andre Johnson.
Yeah, I think it's close. I think it's a lot closer than maybe you're giving it some credit for, but I do think the ultimate equalizer is the fact that he played much more meaningful football, and it's that exact run that you're talking about. Like that 2008 Super Bowl run. And I know they didn't win the Super Bowl, but Andre Johnson has nothing like that because the Texans had no such success anywhere near that. I think if you give Andre Johnson that piece of the resume, then it's a closer conversation. Like, they're comparable talents. Like Andre Johnson, I love to hear Michael Irvin talk about Andre Johnson as the best wide receiver to come out of Miami, himself included. That's how highly Michael Irvin thinks of Andre Johnson. But also, to the point, like, he did not have that marquee moment or marquee stretch of football, meaningful football that Larry Fitzgerald played in. So kind of gives Larry the nod there, if nothing else.
Yeah, his one marquee moment really was the touchdown in the opening playoff game against the Bengals.
Yeah, and
that's really about it.
That doesn't even compare.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so,
that doesn't.
By the way, that postseason run that Larry Fitzgerald had in 4 games is kind of like what wide receiver 2 looks like for the Texans. He had 30 receptions, 546 yards and 7 touchdowns. That's kind of like what those wide receiver twos did last year for the Texans during an entire season. And that was 4 games in the playoffs by Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah, otherworldly.
Whew. Yeah, but let's be clear. Andre Johnson, it was a joke they made him wait as long as they did for 3 years. They're going to make DeAndre Hopkins wait. But I guess if we're really trying to decipher like who's better than what, and we're all talking about these great wide receivers, it shows that all those guys should be in the Hall of Fame. And you know that Andre Johnson is, you know that Larry Fitzgerald is, and I think DeAndre Hopkins will inevitably get in one day as well.
Both of the Texans wide receivers that we mentioned are thought of a lot more fondly if their quarterback play is just a little bit better. Like it did not help either guy that they didn't play with a noteworthy quarterback at all, really. I guess DeAndre did play with Deshaun toward the end there. But for
Larry got a little bit of Kurt,
Yeah, well, Larry definitely got Kirk. But I mean, for the Texans guys, like the best quarterback that Andre Johnson had was Matt Schaub, and the best that DeAndre Hopkins had, at least here, was the back end of Deshaun Watson. Of course, he played with a really good Kyler Murray for that little stretch there in Arizona, but they didn't have the best quarterbacks to kind of support them. Neither guy had anything close to what Kurt Warner was in that one Super Bowl season.
Zach Gell, B. Scott here with you. We're coming on back in 5 minutes. Sports Radio 610.
Houston, starting Thursday, August 13th, Sports Radio 610 is moving to the F.
Transaction price may be higher in Alaska and Hawaii.
Live from the West Point Lincoln and West Point Lincoln of Sugar Land Studios, it's Sports Radio 610 Weekends.
B. Scott, Zach Gelb, 40 more minutes to play. Sports Radio 610 on the weekends. You could always give me a follow on the good old cesspool of Twitter at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB. Make sure you follow along, and you can find B. Scott at Brandon K. Scott. B. Scott, I followed you on Twitter before, but I did not know how big of a reality TV fan you are.
Yeah, man. So
you don't got to put your hand on your face. Like, I love reality TV. Like, that is something that I am proud about when I do radio shows. That, like, we all sit there, we're macho men, sports. I love sports, but I like me some dumb reality TV.
And see, that's the thing. It's not that I'm so macho man, or that my masculinity is so toxic, or that I'm insecure in it that I don't want you to know. I just think that it's actually bad television, but there's something about it that I cannot.
I love it.
Dude, I cannot turn it off. I cannot. And then I get invested into the storyline. Like, I think it's cheap. It's like slop. But I'm coming to realize I like slop every now and then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Everyone likes a sloppy Joe, here and there. I'm not trying to eat it 7 days a week, but if you tell me every 50 days I have some sloppy Joes, extra sloppy, it's not the worst thing in the world. But Love Island, did you like it this year?
Dude, I am enthralled. It's not that I even liked it. I just couldn't put it down. It's like if you ask a heroin addict, do you like heroin? And it's like, I don't know. I just can't stop doing it, right? So that's how I felt. Like I didn't like here's what I didn't like. I didn't like the conversations that emerged from it. I thought that it got way too, like, just conflated. Like, instead of just having fun with the storylines, I thought some of them got way too philosophical. I don't know if I was just too chronically online during the time. I also think that they're doing a little bit too much in terms of, like, playing into the camera. Like, if you go back and watch Love Island from a few seasons ago, it just felt like a dating show. Like, it felt like the folks there were really trying to build connections and actually find, a dating partner. Now it feels like that there's much more playing to the camera, and folks are in it because they know the influencer part of it is on the other side. It feels way more business, like Business Island, Influencer Island, than it is Love Island, like it was, say, a couple of years ago. So that's the part of it that I didn't like. But was I enthralled? Was I entertained? Absolutely.
I'm going to be honest with you. Last season, I thought it was good. I thought that character, Hudda, was kind of like Draymond Green, where she was very just polarizing, and whether you loved her or hate her, it didn't matter. You watched for her, and she just stirred up the pot. There was no real polarizing character this year. And, like, the most memorable moment of the show was that gal, Kenzie, doing her splits, because you can't really forget that. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. But there wasn't really any character that was real memorable. And the last 2 years, the couples that won were just, like, so blah.
Yeah.
Like, Bryce and Trinity, all right, nice couple. There's nothing memorable about them. 2 years ago, what's the gal that ended up winning?
It was Amaya and Brian.
Amaya and Brian, you're right. And, like, how Amaya won that show, it's like, you knew they didn't really actually love each other. He swooped in at the end and was like, wow, the rest of this cast sucks, and there's no great relationship, so I'm going to go win the money that's out there.
Well, so the thing that they tried to do this year, where as far as, like, the main character, it did seem like they wanted, like, some combination of Sincere, Casey, and then just the whatever love triangles that those guys were involved in with Sincere and Melanie, Casey and Anaya, and then they ended up bringing in TT from Casa. But it seemed like they wanted those to be the main characters, but ultimately the way to win, and I don't like this part of it either, kind of speaking to your point, it seems like the way to win the show is not to have necessarily the best couple or the best connection, but it's like, who's the most popular girl? And whoever the most popular girl is the one. And so whatever her connection is, that's who ultimately ends up winning, right? So that's why I think Amaya ended up winning last year, because she was the internet's favorite. I think for whatever reason, people really liked Trinity this year. And so them being the most popular girls meant that whatever guy they were attached to at the time, that ended up being the couple that won, which to me is not necessarily the way to play it.
By the way, Melanie is gorgeous. I did not know that she was once a plus-size model until after the show.
Yes.
But not only that, it's just like she could go date whoever she probably wants. And Sincere, it's like this guy keeps on spinning in your face and you keep on going back for more. That is something I just never
did. So this is the thing, too, like why Love Island is kind of fascinating, because you're trying to find your best connection, but you can only find your best connection to the people who are available to you in the villa. So it's not like real life, whereas if this happens in real life, you just you probably just wipe your hands of it. But you're trying to find your best connection in this very small sample size, and he might actually be that, even if he's as problematic as he is.
If your mom or sister came to you and said, this person's bad for you, you need to run away.
Yes.
And then she doubles down on him. Like, that's the part that I'm like, dude, your family that are sitting there, they're crying, they love you, and they're saying, run away from this man. And she goes, I got to give you a chance. I'm like, what are you doing?
Dude, no, his family. You remember that?
Oh, yeah, even his dad was a gangster. His own
dad comes in and is like, man, I don't know what it is, what kind of blankety blank this guy is on. I don't know what this guy is on, right? But that's not how I raised him. That's not how the men in our family are at least supposed to get down. Like, he got basically all zeros.
Mr. Deeds?
Yeah.
You ever see the movie Mr. Deeds?
Yeah,
Remember, like, when the quarterback speaks negatively to Adam Sandler, and the dad walks in with the belt, and the quarterback of the Jets is like, no, Daddy, no.
Yes.
That was basically Sincere's father, who walked in, and he was ready to just give him the business.
Dude,
smack him.
Melanie's running through all the stop signs. And for what? Just because, honestly, she's desperate in the villa with limited options. But here's the thing that I don't know if they forget this, or maybe it hits them after they get out. But once you get out of the villa, you're going to be infinitely more famous, and you're already beautiful. Like, you don't even make it into the villa, male or female, if you're not beautiful, right? So you go in beautiful, just simply beautiful. You come out still beautiful, but also now famous. All of them are going to have and currently have the world at their feet, unlike you do in the villa. So life has changed. I'm very curious to see how everybody is situated once the reunion comes at the end of August. Yeah, I think it's at the end of August.
Yeah, at the end of August.
Yeah.
By the way, like, Love Island this year kind of reminds me of the state of the Houston Astros. Like, there's nothing really that you could tangibly hold on to and you could feel good about. And you probably know that they should get rid of Jeremy Pena because they're not going to pay him. You got a GM and you got a manager who are in the final year of their contract, and they're not going to get extended because the last time the Astros won the World Series, they got rid of their GM. It's like, you look around, there's a lot of sloppiness with the Astros, but I keep on going back for more, and the AL is so bad that you sit there and you go, oh, if they could just get hot, like here or there, and they keep on going down, and then they keep on dragging you back in, and it's like, oh, like, I don't really believe in this team, but I keep on wanting to watch more of them.
Yeah.
So the Astros are Love Island.
Yeah, no, the Astros are whoever your favorite Love Island character who played in somebody's face, like just kind of just being a little, they're like Sincere, who's named ironically somehow, right? Because he was as unsincere as you could possibly be. But that's what the Astros are kind of like. They're the gaslighting cast member of Love Island right now.
By the way, did you see it only took 11 days for Lance McCullers to get designated for assignment by the Milwaukee Brewers?
Dude, I did. And, I feel terrible about this because I'm like, man, I'm hoping for Lance to have some kind of second act. I saw that as soon as he got there, they put him in the bullpen, and it looked like he was had a decent showing. But it does seem like, and has seemed like for a while, that the end was near for Lance. And so I think that's where we are. A couple of crazy things happened over the last couple of days. I saw that Dallas Keuchel, who I thought they had already put the shovel over him, Dallas Keuchel of Astros fame from a decade ago, got a minor league deal, and Lance McCullers just got DFA'd. I'm like, dude, I can't believe where we are right now. But yeah, it's been a nice run for Lance McCullers. I think it's about to come to an end here.
Yeah, it's definitely all over when a team trades for you, then you can't even make it 14 days, and 11 days in, they end up designating you for assignment. One more thing, because last night, my girlfriend's out of town this weekend. She's on a little girls trip. So I ended up going home to spend the night with my parents. And my dad made a great barbecue, had lamb chops. He made a little grilled chicken pesto or barbecue chicken pesto sandwiches, which were really damn good. Had some prosciutto bread and all that stuff. So, had a good meal last night.
Sounds like
you
it,
always
man.
get that home cooking. But then my dad, he loves to go to bed early. So it's just my mom and me on the couch. And we're looking for a TV show. But, you don't want to watch something that's too long because I knew my mom wasn't going to make it, most of the night. So I go on Netflix, and there's this 90-minute documentary called A Toxic Love Story. And it came out 3 days ago. This was one of the most bat-bleep crazy things I've ever watched. So I highly recommend it. Your emotions are going to change so much. It's basically there was this couple, they broke up. Then everyone tried to portray the ex-girl as this crazy person that then hired someone off Craigslist to go and, this is the vulgar part of this, but this is what happens.
Attack her, basically.
Yes, rape her,
Yeah.
pretty much, the new girlfriend. And then I'm sitting there, she gets arrested, and I go, there's 80 more minutes of this.
Yeah.
It's so clear that this girl is guilty, and she ended up being completely innocent, and it was the new couple that was together that was just trying to torment this girl. I'm telling you, it's 90 minutes. It is absolutely wild.
Yeah, I saw it, man. And
you watched it?
Yeah, the male interest in this, the male interest in this is a U.S. Marshal, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to give it away. I want y'all to go ahead and check it out yourselves. But there's almost, other than the person who is framed, obviously, but for the most part, it's hard to, throughout the course of the doc, it is hard to root for anyone by the time you get to the end of it, except for once you get to the end of it, you realize somebody's been framed. But in the moment, you're like, oh my God, that person's crazy,
Right?
And then your crazy meter shifts from person to person.
100%.
So by the time you get to the end of it, you're like, well, so wait, what was going on? Because it feels like at various points, everybody was irredeemable, So it is fascinating. I agree. I definitely binged this one either Friday or, I probably watched this either Thursday or Friday. Yeah, this one had me enthralled as well.
It's why it would not be good if I was selected to be in a jury, because I'm so quickly to just say guilty. And I know you're innocent until proven guilty, but whenever you thought someone was guilty in this show, then 5 seconds later you thought someone else was guilty.
Yeah.
And the person that's the biggest dope of them all is the blonde girl that was friends with the guy. And clearly she had a crush on him,
and won't
but just
admit it.
would never say I wanted to date you.
Yeah.
And she just simps for him the entire time after all of this is laid out, where she just was played and looking like a dummy.
You know what? And what's bad about that is she seems to be otherwise the most she almost would seem normal if not for this fact, right? She seems relatively normal and decent, other than the fact that she's got this soft spot, weak spot for this person who turns out to be perhaps a sociopath by the time you get to the end of the doc. So that part is crazy. I got another one for you, though, if we're recommending
just real quickly,
Netflix shows. Go ahead.
That blonde girl, she kind of reminds me of the Rockets with Kevin Durant. You should move on. You should have traded him for Jaylen Brown, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. You could have done that. See, I know what people are going to say when they hear B. Scott and I do 15 minutes non-sports. They're going to be like, oh, why are you guys not talking sports? That's why I kind of just mixed in the Astros there, mixed in the Rockets, while we get to just talk about our love for TV.
Yeah, the Rockets might be stuck between a rock and a hard place either way, whether they were to trade Kevin Durant or not. But I do recommend one more before we go to break.
Yeah.
This one is a little bit darker because it does involve some death, or quite a bit of it, but Maternal Instinct, if you have not seen it.
Where is it on?
It's on Netflix too. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Maternal Instinct. It's a rough one, but it is fascinating how that one plays out. It's basically a woman who lies about her pregnancy all the way to the very end, and then it has a very dark ending to it. But the twists and turns and the lengths that she goes to maintain this lie. Imagine trying to maintain a 9-month lie where at the end of it, the rubber has to meet the road. So so this one's pretty dark and pretty tough, but it is fascinating. Maternal Instinct.
There's a lady on the subway in New York City that she's been pregnant for 8 years, begging for money, saying that she needs to support her family. And at first I gave her money. And then I realized 9-10 months later, I see her on the subway and I'm like, the kid's not out of her.
Yeah.
I'm like, she's had the same baby for 9-10 years in the tummy.
Imagine if you were dating said woman and she was lying to you about having the baby. Like this, that's what this is kind of like. Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy lives with her, and yeah.
How do you not know? That's a tough one to recover from. All righty, Zach Gelb here with you along with B. Scott. We got one more segment to play. We're getting back into the Texans and who the F knows what else on the other side.
Houston, starting Thursday, August 13th, Sports Radio 610 is moving to the FM dial.
inducted. And congratulations to Jeff Kent and Carlos Beltran. But it is funny to me, you have two guys that did play for the Astros, and there's not really like a lot of buzz here because Beltran, he had one of those great postseason runs that you'll ever see in 2004. Then came back in 2017 and it was like kind of like a wisdom type of player in that role to a championship. And Jeff Kent was only here from 2003 to 2004. But it's wild. You have two guys that have ties to the Astros, and it doesn't feel like there's a lot of, at least from my read, a lot of fanfare about this one.
Yeah, so Jeff Kent did have like a short run here, and he was an all-star in one of those seasons when he was here. But, his time and his career is mostly remembered with the Giants, and I think that part is reasonable. Carlos Beltran is the interesting one because he had two separate runs here. Obviously the earlier one that you mentioned that kind of helped stamp his Hall of Fame resume or a big part of his Hall of Fame resume. And then that back end of it with the whole sign stealing scandal and the 2017 season and his role in it, like that's the part where I think I feel like for some Astros fans, like maybe that back end of it diminished it a little bit. And like, I don't know if we're too far removed from the highest part of it and too close to the lower part of it. But I do think it's interesting for one of the better, if we're just being real about it, I mean, he's one of the better Astros of all time, despite not playing for them for all of that long, and we don't really talk about him in that way, but he's certainly obviously going to be one of the handful of Astros Hall of Famers out there. So the one thing we have thought about and fixated on in the moments leading up to this is the times where he has had to speak about or openly spoken about the sign stealing scandal, but it's been less about, hey, let's relive that 2000, even though it was one season, right? It was one season here that we're really talking about. What a season it was, right? And when it was kind of him really like bursting onto the scene, but we don't really reflect on it nearly as much.
Yeah, and I don't care about the sign-stealing scandal, really, because they won another championship. Like, if it was just one isolated championship, then people would be like, oh, like, how legitimate was it? The fact that they were able to win another 1 years later, I think the sign-stealing scandal does kind of go away.
But without him, though. Remember that, though. Like, he was just there for the 1 year, and he had been with the Yankees right before that, and there was this idea that they took whatever it was that they were doing with the Yankees and just amplified it here in Houston, right? And then you get to the trash can banging stuff, which was unprecedented and objectively funny.
And the buzzer accusations, too.
Right. Which I don't think that there was anything to the buzzer accusations, but they opened the door for that, right? Once you do something as absurd as banging on trash cans.
Well, wasn't it Altuve didn't want his shirt ripped off because his wife didn't like the tattoo that he got? What was the talk?
Yeah, which was also a ridiculous notion, but also like, like the buzzer thing. There was just never anything to it. We actually knew that they were banging on trash cans. There was never anything to the buzzer thing. But I think we just kind of exposed Altuve and his wife for, dare I say, being a little bit corny about him being without his shirt and having a tattoo. I think there's some truth to that. It's just a corny thing. And I would have just rather let people believe the buzzer thing than come out and say, hey, my wife doesn't want me to have my shirt off. Because I was there. I was actually in the clubhouse when he parades around the clubhouse and shows everybody said tattoo. And it's like it kind of looks like a jailhouse tattoo, like, something that maybe your friend who can draw would have done. But, I mean, who cares, right? Like, just if that was all it was, I think you could have exposed that. But, yeah, I wouldn't have allowed that to be a part of the narrative. I would have just let people think that there was a buzzer and just gone on with my life. Because let's be real, the buzzer thing is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, sure. It was fun speculation in social media and all that stuff. But for Beltran's future, I know he's been with the Mets the last few years in a front office role. There's a lot of talk because he was the Mets manager. He never got to manage a game because in the fallout of the scandal, they just went after people that were managers and like Hinch, obviously, and Cora. Now we know Hinch and Cora have both been back in, but Beltran's role during all this was as a player, and they made a punitive action basically on him when he was just getting the Mets job, where Major League Baseball just didn't want him to continue in a leadership role. But that's a name that's going to surface this offseason to be a manager. There's talks about him being the next Mets manager, and maybe there could be a homecoming with the Astros. I don't think it would happen because I don't know how much he would trust the ownership group right now with the Pena situation. But it's like, if Espada's gone, which many people think he's going to be, I wanted to give a call to Carlos Beltran to come back to Houston.
Yeah, certainly from a baseball standpoint, like if we're just talking about qualifications and the prospect of it and the idea of it, it's something that I could get behind. And I imagine it's something that the Astros themselves could get behind. Jim Creighton is notably trusting of former players like who had great careers. That little stretch there a few years back before they hired Dana Brown, after they let James Click go or decide not to bring him back, he pretty much had an advisory committee that was like him, Jeff Bagwell, Reggie Jackson, and like a handful of like real true baseball guys and former players, great players that he really believed in. You could see him leaning into that with a Carlos Beltran. I just wonder if there's too much bad, like a bad taste in the mouth of how that thing ended. Like the 1 year that he had come back, right? That last year where he was here was the 1 year where everything kind of went south. If even just the association of it, right? Like we have fun talking about Jeff Luhnow. He should come back as the general manager. See if A.J. Hinch wants to come back and hear with this conversation of Carlos Beltran. I'm curious of what would Jim Creighton's appetite be for bringing back guys who were associated with the sign-stealing scandal. Obviously, brought back Carlos Correa, right? Jose Altuve is still here now, right? So, and I know the players were never punished for it, but I'm just curious of what the appetite would be for guys who were associated with that era.
Last thing, because I know we got to run. We started the show talking about the Texans and Schefter's comments about how there could still be a deal that gets done. I would be surprised if they get a deal done before the start of the season. I think this is truly a make-or-break year for C.J. Stroud. I don't think they're giving him a big contract. Yeah,
I feel like if a deal was going to get done, it would have gotten done already. Whether that was going to be like this high-end, super lucrative deal or some kind of discount, compromise type of deal, whatever it's going to ultimately be, or whatever it was going to be, I feel like it would have been done by now if it was going to happen. And so to the point, it's a make-or-break year, do or die, prove it year, however you want to look at it. But I think we're going to come to the other side of it, seeing where C.J. Stroud's going to be with the contract situation.
Yeah, and I don't think this carries on all throughout training camp and through the preseason. I think if a deal doesn't get done when that first practice is next week on the 29th, I think that's going to be a wrap for really that part of the conversation. But B. Scott, always great to hang with you. You know, this is always fun when we end up doing this.
Yeah, man, I enjoy it, man. Good place to be on a Sunday, man, so I appreciate the time.
You got it, Jared. Great job back in the shop. We will obviously big thanks to Coach Haley as well. Jordan, excuse. Did I say Jared?
Yeah.
Did I mess that up?
Yeah, Jared.
It's
Jordan.
all right, man. You're good. I've heard worse, so you're fine.
I was like Todd Haley calling B. Scott Bart Scott.
Hey, at least you weren't. At least you weren't what that guy was calling PC a couple of years back.
Yeah,
that would have been a problem.
Oh yeah.
All righty, great job as always, Jordan. Thank you, B. Scott. Great job. Big thanks to Coach Haley and each and every one of you. We'll talk to you next time. I'm Zach Gelb for Sports Radio 610. We out. Bye bye. Peace.
Cleveland is just a mess right now.
Houston. Starting Thursday, August 13th, Sports Radio 610 is moving to the FM dial. Introducing 95.7 The Fan.
Every touchdown, every tackle, every Thirsty Thursday, Football Friday, and Reaction Monday, every conversation on your drive home, static-free across the entire metro area.
Louder, clearer, and better than ever. A new era begins on August 13th with Houston's sports leader, 95.7 The Fan.
Extreme heat is here. Rising temperatures are life-threatening for seniors,